Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, my name is Bryce. I am so excited because for the first time on my show, I got Nora, the ex-Scientologist, Nora, you guys. And I was telling you, Nora, before we started filming, I've been watching you for such a long time that I feel like I already know you. But thank you so much for coming on and actually letting me meet you, so it's not just a crazy idea I have in my head.
Right. We do get, I think that does happen a lot with like internet relationships. You follow a creator for so long, you're just like, they make you laugh, they make you feel things, and then you're like, we're friends, we're besties.
Yeah. Oh no, hot dog. I mean, my boyfriend and I say that all the time in our house. Uh-oh, hot dog. Uh-oh.
Right.
So
it wasn't even mine originally, and I said that was Bobby Lee. It was a character Bobby Lee did on Mad TV where he had like this terrible bowl cut, and like no matter what was happening, some terrible thing would be happening. Like, uh-oh, hot dog. And it was like, it's just so much nonsense. But I was like, it's the correct response to like complete nonsense. You know what I mean? Like, uh-oh, hot dog.
Well, this might seem kind of maybe TMI, but we have a dog, the love of my life, our dog, who is a rescue from South India. We rescued him from South India, and those dogs don't have a lot of hair on their bellies because they're from South India. And so his wiener, when he shakes, it makes this sound because it's hitting skin. And for a long time, we could not figure out what that sound was coming off of Robbie, our dog, until we figured it out. So we're like, uh-oh, hot dog. Like every time it just like back and forth. So if you ever get a dog that's like doesn't have hair on its belly and it's a male,
you know, whip it back and forth like Willow Smith. I whip my wiener back.
It's gonna be like helicoptering, but it's with the dog, and he doesn't have hair, so it just makes sounds. But you guys, before we go any further into this conversation, I am gonna go ahead. I will have all of Nora's links down in the description box below. Please make sure you guys, because we're gonna get into it. Nora, you are so funny. You have such a great sense of humor. And if you guys, I know I have so many people on this channel. You're all here because you're weirdos like me. You're interested and you want to spy into these wacky, weird worlds, which seems to be a lot of, which we can talk about later on.
Oh, yeah.
Of cults and in mind control and all that kind of stuff. So, Nora, actually, before we get started, you know, we have a mutual obsession with a particular show.
We do.
And the holy song starts going in.
It's the Mormon wives, guys. Come on. First of all, shirtless husbands. You know, the trifecta. You've got Mormons, but they're totally not being Mormons. They're obsessed with soda. What is going on? Who puts creamer in soda? This is disgusting. I don't know what happened. Mormons are just, these guys are so un-Mormon, but then at the same time, where's my pious queen? Where's the pious queen? Here she is. Just look at that.
And she's not
manager haircut.
She's not coming back
all the managers. And I'm sorry. Right. And also, where's her husband? The gayest man on the planet. Girl, he was not on. He was on Tinder. He was on Tinder.
He was on Grindr. He was not.
You heard that Grindr ding. You thought that was Tinder, girl. And then we have possibly the dumbest daddy on the. Huh? What is it? It's a kid. You change the diaper. But I mean, this is the gay. I mean, like, come on. You can't not see it. And then, of course, this is my favorite picture that I did of Taylor's mom, because that just sums her up. That just sums her up.
You guys, if you have not watched The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, give it a couple of episodes, but it is wild, I tell you. It just shows you when you repress people, like they do some, I mean, and they're coming back for season 2, you know, and it's wild because I've studied, I've actually read the Book of Mormon before I was on YouTube, just because I'm curious.
Right.
It's wild. And I grew up in like mainstream Presbyterian, and it's like what would you call it? Like fan fiction Christianity.
Yeah.
It's like wild.
Yeah. So
No,
I mean, I saw the Book of Mormon as a play. I haven't actually read the actual Book of Mormon, but I figured that the play was going to give me the Cliff Notes version of it, and it was a musical, so that's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this Mormonism is the magic underwear alone. I'm like, what? What are we doing with magic underwear? Why?
So sexy, isn't it?
Right. What is their garments? They're called the garments. And you hear that like 800 times throughout this series. Oh, where are my garments? I forgot. Bitch, you are wearing a low cut. Your boobies are out. How do you have garments on with that? Do you have like Victoria's Secret virgin garments? What's going on? The
And
garments
aren't you guys swingers?
all up here.
They got famous for being swingers.
Not all of them were swingers. Just Tay-Tay and then like 3 women who didn't go on the show. So Tay-Tay and these other 3 women and Tay-Tay's original husband, her divorce, she's now divorced. They were swinging. They were like having these parties. And then they slowly tried to get other people like, hey, maybe you should do that. And it broke up the whole mom talk. So then all these other people, okay. So Whitney, I think Whitney's original member, Michaela, this is the thing. Demi, Jesse, okay, Layla, hang on, gotta get on my girls. Jen Affleck, you guys are gonna hear that she's an Affleck 4 million times. Did you know her husband's an Affleck? He's the Timu Affleck, but he's an Affleck, okay? And then of course, our princess, Macy, right? Okay, so none of these women, except for like 2 of them, knew each other. They met as a casting call for this show. Wow, they were not actual like mom talk. They got approached to do a show, and then you can see in the first, guys, this is why you got to watch. In the first episode, you can see Tay-Tay is in a bad place. Okay. Yeah. She is not good. She's clearly an alcoholic. By the end of the first episode, she's arrested. Okay. in the jail. They had to wait 6 months to continue filming because she was in jail for 6 months, serving out time. She's on then for the rest of the season, she's on probation. Okay. So she can't, so when they go to film in these places that are like bars, she can't go in the bar because it's part of her probation that she cannot go into bars and stuff like that. So it is wild. And there's a season 2 coming up. They're making us wait. They're making us beg for it. But in the meantime, their TikTok is fire. It's gold.
Well, and that Taylor got that because she just apparently got. So I'm not a mother, so I don't watch but I learned about it because of the reality. Actually, I think I might have heard about it first on the Mormon Stories podcast because I'm just nosy. Like I want to know like what are all, because there's so many freaking cults everywhere all over the world. Mm-hmm. And it's just, and they're similar. Actually, Mormonism there are some similarities to Scientology. They believe in like planets and like that you're going to go and you're going to graduate.
Well, there's a difference there because Mormonism believes when you die, you get your own planet.
Yeah.
Right. That's you and your family. If you're all saved and you're all like, you get ranked as a Mormon via various actions, right? So you have like baptism, and then you have your mission, and then you have getting married, and then the number of kids for a woman, the number of kids that she bears raises her rank. Okay. So if you and your husband upon death are at different ranks, you're going to end up on different planets. Like you're not even going to be together in the eternity, even though like can you imagine being a woman? You gave birth to 12 kids. You fucking clean for all these kids. You cook for all these kids and this guy. You're folding his underwear for 50 years and shit. And then because somehow he did something extra special, he gets a better planet than you. Fuck that. That's bullshit.
Well, it's totally male. It's very patriarchal because women get to go and be like polygamous wives to these husbands up in the stratosphere and just have spirit babies their whole for all of eternity. And it is wild to me because I grew up Presbyterian and I have my issues with the church too. People know I'm not really a fan of the church in general, but at least in like the Presbyterian church, I mean, look, in the deep South, I've said this before, I love being from the South because everybody's eccentric down here. Everybody's eccentric. They go to church on Sunday and then they're doing voodoo on Sunday night. Like, that's just the way it is.
That's how it is.
That's just how it is. And my friend Angie, who grew up Baptist, she informed me, I didn't know this, but apparently the Presbyterians are like the alcoholics, which all of a sudden, a lot of things in my childhood made sense when she said that. But we're a very old, well, not the old religion, but for the America, we're an older, so it's kind of settled. It's kind of settled, and she always calls the women of the church ladies covens, because they get together and have these prayer meetings, but they just gossip. Baby Jesus, please protect Mary Jane because she's been wearing some really slutty clothes to church. Like, that's how they gossip. So it's fantastic. I find it all very fantastic. I was telling you, my audience, I learned too, there's this great TikTok channel where this guy finds these old recipes from old church cookbooks from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which is probably a pretty good idea.
All that weird salad shit.
And he remakes it.
Oh
Well,
my
he
God.
was doing this one recipe, and there was like this rogue ingredient. He couldn't think. He's like, this would be really great without this one ingredient. So I went and looked at the comment section, because the comment sections are often the best. And I learned something. So apparently, back in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when most Southern women, church women, were housewives, they would get very attached to whatever dish they made the best. So when the church would come a-calling, asking for their recipe to donate to raise funds to sell these cookbooks, they would give the recipe and they'd add a rogue ingredient in so that
everybody else would fuck it up. That is the most Southern thing I've ever heard. That is the most Southern shit I've ever heard. Like, my great grandmother was from Gadsden, Alabama. She talked like so slow. Hey, Nora Beth, listen now. What is wrong with you? You are too skinny. Is nobody feeding you in California? Like this, I had never been to the South, and like she had come to visit us in California, and so my grandfather took me to visit his mother, and we sit down. And I'm fluffy now, but like in my teen years, I was fit, you know? And so she sits down and she's like, I'm worried about, I'm going to fix you a plate. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that dinner. Sure. Sounds good. She pops down in front of me this plate of course, home fried chicken.
Yep.
That's got greens and like several biscuits. And I thought, oh, this is like for the center of the table. And then, you know, we just take like a piece and I was like, how do I share this? No one else has a plate, Mama. And she's like, oh no, honey, that's your plate. Yeah, I need you to eat that all up right now because you are too thin. And I was like, what? This is like an entire KFC meal, but like on the plate. Oh my God, the collard greens. This woman made pecan pie from the tree in her backyard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, And I gained like 15 pounds in a week. Like, don't do that. Like, that Southern cooking, that'll get you.
Yeah. I always say my favorite recipe, we only get it on Thanksgiving, Christmas, is pineapple casserole. It's very Southern. I'll send it to you if you want it.
Okay.
I don't cook. I had to call my mom to ask her how to boil eggs the other day at almost 42 years old. So like, my boyfriend's a really good cook.
I'm a big cook. I love cook, and I love all kinds of food, but Southern cooking, man, y'all, for real. I would be 400 pounds if I lived in the South.
And, women, especially that generation, like my grandparents, they're very proud of their dishes that's theirs, and so they would get petty. Like they were petty Betty.
Yeah.
They were like, Marlene down the street is not going to outdo me on my chocolate chip cookies, you know. So they would make sure there was I'll send it to you. It's like Ritz crackers, pineapple, sharp cheddar cheese, sugar, and butter. That's basically all it is. It is probably.
You just can't stop eating it.
Oh my God. And it can be like a breakfast dish too. Like if you have guests come in, you can actually, I mean, it is like, it is. And we only do it for the holidays because it's so bad for you, but it is so good. So anyway, but yeah, I guess you could say that the South is kind of like a cult too. Cause we're there. I mean, I'll say my channel's heard me say this before. I didn't realize how eccentric the South was until Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the book came out, and then they made a movie about it in the late 90s. It's based on a true story in Savannah, Georgia, about a murder trial that happened, and the guy had his voodoo worker, and that's what this whole kind of story is about. And this reporter comes down from New York to like follow the story, and it opens with this guy walking a ghost dog. That's how the story kind of opens. And they were talking about it on some like one morning show. It's a teenager, and they were like talking about it, and it was wild to them that this was a part of the story, that this was a true story, that there was a guy that walked the ghost dog. And I remember having this like epiphany, and I was thinking as a teenager, I was like, wait, you mean you guys don't have guys that walk ghost dogs? Is that weird? Like, is that weird? Like, yeah, everything's haunted down here. Everything is, you know, and I think that's weird with religion, because in the South, everything's haunted. You know, we go to church, we learn there's heaven and hell when you die, but then you've also got a haunted house. So there's that kind of understanding that there's a little bit.
I mean, it's like, let's face it, the South is built on slavery and death, and like how many millions of people were slaughtered there as literal, like, you know, slaves. I mean, of course, every shit is haunted. I mean,
it's
and the indigenous people who were wiped out by the people who wanted to bring slaves in to, like, you know, work the land. So you have like a double homicide of peoples, and then like in the afterlife, they're like, bitch, we're in this together. Like, we're gonna fuck chant in all the languages and fuck these people up. Like,
that's what I tell me. I'm like, all this evolution of all this stuff, the really intense stuff that happened down here, you've got this, especially for Southern women, you've got this hodgepodge of like Protestantism, voodoo, and Native American stuff, you know? And it's like the most devout Christian woman is actually doing voodoo too, root work. I mean, don't piss them, you know? And I always say,
no, I don't mess with that. Like my mom told me the story. She went down. I've never been to New Orleans yet, and I really want to go before it's underwater because the seas are rising and it's awful. But my mom was like, you know, she was down in the, checking it all, doing all the touristy thing, getting the beignets, and there was a voodoo shop. And my pops was like, let's go in. And so my mom's like, okay. And she took like 3 steps in the shop, and she was like, nope. And she just like walked out because, like, listen, y'all, I don't mess, like, I don't allow a Ouija board in my house.
Oh no, not me neither.
With voodoo. I respect people who practice Wiccan and witchcraft. I am not fucking with y'all because that shit I don't understand. And I'm not going to be like, oh, that's fake and all that. Like, no,
it's powerful.
No. No, thank you.
If y'all ever want to clean your space, Florida water, which is what's used in voodoo. It's
does that say Florida water?
Florida, as in like the state Florida. It's flower water. It's. I got the spray. Whenever I feel like my space is like, you just spray it, girl. Right. The voodoo shit works.
Yeah, no, I am a believer. No, I don't. Listen, I grew up in Scientology, y'all. So this is like Scientology is. L. Ron Hubbard stole everything from everybody because he was born in like the early part of 1900. Okay. So I always try to like remind people, like, when he was born, you could literally walk into any town in America and just be like, hey, I'm Captain Kirk. And the people were like, hey, Captain Kirk. Wow. How was the war? Well, it was rough. And, I saved a lot of people. You could tell whatever tale you wanted. Yeah. And that was your story. There was no, like, we didn't have formal identification. People didn't have birth certificates. We didn't have social security cards. You were literally the writer of your own story. People were pouring into America, having their names bastardized at the border. Like, oh, you're Shikabowska Babushki? You're Shipland. All right. Welcome to America. Like people's whole lives were created from scratch. It was like a Etch-a-Sketch shakeover, right? So as a young kid, clearly a lot of mommy issues because he never talks about his mom in any of his writings ever. But he had a lot of daddy issues too. So daddy was in the big Navy man, and he took him around the world, probably because he kept getting kicked out of school. Right. So he's getting kicked out of school. His dad's like, fuck it, I'll just put him on the boat with me. Maybe he'll learn something. And then he wove this childhood abuse and lack of education into his own adventure tale. Like I will give it up to L. Ron's imagination. He had a huge imagination. And he also had like a penchant for like grabbing onto weird shit and then weaving it together into like one singular thing. Like he grabbed from Madame Blavatsky, he grabbed from Aleister Crowley, he grabbed from Christianity, from Buddhism, from like This is
Dianetics, guys. This is Dianetics, and this is 5,000 years old.
Thank you. He grabbed from from Freud, from people that he then railed against, right? He stole from everybody. If you get a really old copy of Dianetics, he thanks like every philosopher known to man and Freud and all these other pioneers in the field of psychiatry, because he knew that this new thing of man, right, was going to change the world, because he grew up pre-depression, post-World War I, then went to World War II, right? So he's living through a lot of weird shit. Everybody talks about post-World War II and the silent generation and the guys who grew up in the Depression. Nobody talks about the guys who grew up post-World War I. World War I, like, fucked everybody. The entire world went into a complete financial, emotional, like everything declined. Right. And the whole world was depressed. It was just, and people forget that in 1918, there was like Krakatoa exploded. And so there was like a nuclear winter for several years around the whole planet where people didn't see the sun. People thought the end of I mean, it was like the dark times had come. A lot of things happened. So then we have the Depression. So then all the rich people get real sad. Then we have World War II, right? Because the whole conflict between a baron and some other guy, and it's an assassination. And now we're all at war again. Like, whatever. Okay. So he goes to World War II. He's a big Nepo baby pretender, gets, you know, ranks and stuff that he doesn't earn, fucking shooting at shit that doesn't exist because he's an alcoholic on a goddamn boat. They have to kick him off the boat. His crew is like, this guy's dangerous. He goes to the cuckoo, you know, farm, the naval, where they send people who have shell shock and like they can't handle them. And that's where his real like thing came to life, right? Is that he really thought that he was going to develop this hero story about himself. I cured myself of blindness. He was never blind. I had a broken back. I cured it with Dianetics. This whole hero story evolves in the same way. If you guys haven't seen the documentary on the Stanford experiment, okay, that guy, same exact deal. That guy got super sick. He had polio as a kid. So he was stuck in the polio wing in these hospitals. And all he had was his imagination of like, you know, all these great adventures and things. And at that moment, he came up as a small child with this theory of resilience and stuff that he then went on to torture people with in the Stanford experiment and then gain fame and all this stuff. I mean, it's like their stories, that guy who started the Stanford experiment and L. Ron Hubbard is like parallel, like exactly the same cuckoo-ness, right? In terms of their gaining fame off false statistics, false science, all this stuff. So
well, back 100 years, and it's also Joseph Smith's story too.
Exactly.
Isn't that wild how
exactly.
Same playbook.
So, yeah, I mean, so Dianetics, the modern science of mental health, as it's so aptly coined, it started out as a sideshow. I like to say L. Ron Hubbard is the greatest carnival sideshow barker that ever existed. He would put ads out in the paper and he would get people to come to these, you know, seminars where he would demonstrate the power of Dianetics, do a live auditing session. Now, you have to realize this is happening in 1950. We are just at the beginning of America being gaslit into this American dream, which is never anywhere, it's never existed, because we had all these women working during World War II because the men were all at war. So women went into the factories, women were making the bombs, women were making the tanks. Women were like, I don't need no man, fuck it. Like, I'm good. I'm fucking Rosie the Riveter. I'm doing all this shit. And they were getting paid. And as soon as the men came back, a lot of the factories were like, I don't want this fucking guy back, man. I remember him. He was a piece of shit. But what they had to do is they had to flip the entire script of America at that moment, because women were like, I don't want to get married and have kids. Why do I want to do that? I want to fucking keep work. I'm loving it. I got my own life. Like, woo, you know. So they created the American dream, the 2.5 kids, the 2 cars, the white picket fence. They started building homes all over America. And then the marketing mind control came in. Television was born. And so now we can get this message in a visual format to hypnotize all the women. What do you want? What does a lady want more than anything? She wants a good mixer. And here's the Mixatic 5000. Look at this ice tray. It empties itself. It's like magic, right? Like this whole housewife, you know, thing that, like, you know, Project 2025 is trying to be like, that was the good times of America. Like, no, it's all fake. It's fake, fake, fake. So L. Ron Hubbard is dealing with guys like himself who have PTSD, which was not a thing at the time. They just called it shell.
I want to pause on you saying that, because I was hoping you would go into that, because I heard you talk about this in a show, and I was like, oh my God, that's so you even back then it was called shell shock.
Shell shock, yeah.
And I mean, we've even developed so much more now that we even know that there's also CPTSD, which is probably what someone like you has, or like I have. I've been diagnosed with it. But we have these, we understand now, but now
we're evolving into CPTSI. Instead of calling PTSD, it is now scientific. It's slowly moving across the medical field. But instead of calling it post-traumatic stress disorder, it is now being called post-traumatic stress injury, because they're finding science, again, the evolution of science, that post-traumatic stress is an injury to the nervous system, to the brain. It is a permanent injury. It is not a disorder. It's not just people like, well, that guy's a woo. It is not a disorder. It's an injury. So it's interesting. Like all of these things are evolving, and it takes time for evolution to happen.
You pointed that out, and I was like, that's such a good, and that is one thing. Like when you are looking at a cult from the peripheral, you see things differently than when you're actually experiencing it. And so there are certain, and when I forgot which show it was I was listening to yours, and you pointed that out, that you had all these men coming back from the Great War, which was World War I, which I think you're right. I don't think World War I gets spoke about as much as World War II. No. Because we had the Holocaust and stuff with World War II, which was horrific. It kind of overshadows the horrors of World War I. So you had all these guys. Have you seen that picture, Nora? There's a picture that's gone around. I can't remember which war it was specifically, but it might have even been the Civil War, like right when photography first came out. But it showed a guy, like an 18-year-old kid right before war, and then like 4 months into war. And the changes on his face were horrific.
Yeah.
So you have all these men and these young boys, how old were some of these boys that even stormed the beaches of Normandy in World War II? Like 16, 17?
I mean, my stepfather, my pops, he joined at 17 because his birthday was in December. So they let him in, and he'd already graduated high school. He was 17 when he joined the army.
Child. That is a child.
No, I know. I have a 19-year-old. He's still a child. He's a teenager. Your brain doesn't fully form until you're 25. That's science.
Right. And so you brought that up, that here comes this like really charismatic guy who confidently is saying he has the answers to fix these problems, which when someone does have a trauma disorder, it doesn't just affect them, it affects everyone in their life.
Correct.
And so people are desperately looking for, and you're right, that generation, before we were recording, we were laughing at everything we've gone through in our lives, but that early 20th century, they also, at least we have the internet.
We have heat, we have electricity. I mean, it's
the radio.
Right. But I mean, you have to think about that generation. Like my great grandparents were born in the 1800s. Okay. Yeah. And they literally homesteaded, like my family has deep roots here in the Pacific Northwest. They homesteaded, covered wagons, the whole bit during the early 1800s into what was then the Oregon Territory, which included part of California all the way up through Washington, right? It was like one big thing. And they homesteaded an area just outside Walla Walla, Washington, hundreds of acres that, of course, it's like in Far and Away where people were like, I take this land. It's like they did that.
Yeah.
And, they were there for well over 100 years, homesteading, building stuff, and my mom would tell me stories about like when she would go to her grandparents' ranch. They had that ranch, and then they had another ranch in Montana that was like nothing, no lights, no electricity. There was an outhouse that you had to like bring a flashlight out to because there could be a, fucking bear out there or something, but this is the reality that people lived in a constant struggle for survival because they had to kill what they ate. They had to plant what they were going to eat and make do with whatever they had. And then, and I'm going to reference Wonder Woman here because I fucking love that movie. But I would say that Wonder Woman is the only movie in the last 20 years, there's been a couple now that have come out, but that really addressed World War I, because when she meets Steve, he's a World War I fighter pilot. And there's a scene in there where he's got the lasso of truth on him and he's describing the horrors of this war and what's going on. And it's like, at that moment, the whole world for the first time had been connected by boats. There was international trade happening for the first time. The world was like seeming like this world economy. People were going about, they were taking voyages to other countries and like, really being able to be part of the world. And then this war erupted, and the development of weapons at that time, you have automatic machine guns. We weren't using cannons anymore. They were having bombs, airplanes, jets. I mean, things like this. No one had ever seen these things. And then they were immediately, of course, weaponized. People were in more terror than they, you know, in that recorded history. Of course, there's been other things that people have gone through throughout history that were awful, other wars, other great wars. But this was, you know, something that since America had been born, right, no one had remembered that, because no survivor of Genghis Khan or Constantine or the Crusades is alive to tell us, like, oh, bro, you think... You guys think this is fucking war? Are you kidding me? Where's all the hanging bodies? Where's all the... did you burn people alive? Did you tie them up with ice on them and burn them alive? Shut. Take a seat. Take a seat. You guys are wimps. Oh, you got flying things? Whoopity-doo! We had arrows. We did it to your face. We didn't do it from far away. We were in your face killing you. You know, like, they don't... Every society has their own thing. Like, we have our stuff now that we're bitching about, that we're upset about. Yeah. And people, like, this is why the, you know, the silent generation is like, these kids don't respect anything. Like, I fucking stabbed a German in the face with a bayonet for this. You know, like, I mean, like, my ex-husband's grandpa fought in World War II, and he got pinned down. He was in a situation where he got pinned down. It was this building they were in were surrounded by Germans, and he had one of those Gatling guns, right? And so he could not see. It was dark. He could not see, but just fire is coming in. And his commander was like, we got to retreat. We got to retreat. And he was like, fuck that shit. And he just is like spraying this Gatling gun just back and forth, just not stopping. It's heating up. It's getting just, and he just kept going for like, until finally his commander is like shaking him. It's just like, Sergeant, stop. And he's like, you know, like, he's just trying. He's like, you got them. They're gone now. Like, he,
the
like,
stress of that, like, to save yourself.
Yeah. If he had retreated, they would have all died. Yeah. He was like, if I'm going out, I'm fucking taking all these fuckers with me.
I'm fighting.
And, yeah. And then they come home and they're still in that, their hippocampus is on fire.
Yep.
Right. All these guys don't know what to do with themselves. They can't have conversation with their wives, so they turn to alcohol. Everybody's becoming... That's what in the whole 50s is like, oh, my honey, fix me my martini. Fabulous. Like, that was like normal for your parents. Like, that's what my mom told me. Her parents came home, they got drunk every single fucking night because they couldn't deal with their childhood. So you're having that whole in the fake Americana bullshit. And then here comes L. Ron with like, hey guys, I figured out the whole mind. I got it. I figured out the whole thing. And even though he was proved right off the bat as a fraud, okay, he touts out the first clear, you know, for a demonstration at the Shrine Auditorium, books up the shrine. I got it. I'm going to show everybody, right? And this girl, like, you know, is supposed to have perfect recall. So people start peppering her with questions like, what happened on Tuesday, the 8th, 1942? And she's like, I don't fucking know. Why are you asking me that? You know, like, she couldn't answer anything. Like, turned around and they were like, what color is his tie? And she's like, I don't know. And but people kept going.
But that's what's wild. And I know people have said that I was listening to Mormon stories again. He brought this point up. This is what I love. I love my cults, you guys. I just love them. It's just that human psychology is fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. And there's all, you know, there's all this theory around, like, is, you know, because our brain, a lot of times our brain won't remember things for a reason. And I remember my trauma therapist even saying that to me when I was going through EMDR therapy. And she said, just so you know, some memories might come up that you haven't remembered. We don't, frankly, I don't want them to. So there are a lot of psychiatrists that are like, if your brain is suppressing the memory, we're going to keep it there. And we're just going to work on the emotion you're having, these side effects. There's all these different theories. But what's wild, Nora, is like, even with like these doomsday cults, that have predicted the end. Look at the Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, how many ends of the world have we lived through according to the Jehovah's Witnesses? And they still go.
Scientology is a doomsday cult too. Did you know that?
Oh no, I didn't. I mean, I know. Like, are we trying to save? I know all I know about
Scientology is in everything cult, anything that comes up. But there's a specific policy letter that we all used to use to recruit called 30 Years that he wrote in 1970. And basically he said in that policy letter that in 30 years, the earth will not be able to sustain life in any way, shape, or form. And so we have 30 years to clear the planet and get the fuck off of it and get to target 2. We're in the year 2025. We're still here, bitch.
Do you think we did die in one of these dates and we're just living in hell right now?
I mean, what about the theory that when they turned on the CERN collider, it actually annihilated our whole universe? And then part of us who are survivors merged with our parallel universe. And that's why we have all these Mandela effects, like Stouffer's stovetop stuffing and the monocle on the Monopoly Man and all these things that are Mandela effects, where a whole bunch of the population believes that Mandela died in jail. But like, I know he absolutely did not die in jail. Yeah. Went on to lead the country, but like there's all these different things.
Yeah,
I mean, it could totally happen. Don't mess with like science. We're not the creators of life. Don't do that. Don't be
like Berenstein. When I was growing up, it was the Berenstein Bears. Now it's the Berenstein. It's the Mandela effect is
it's Berenstein Bears. Who the fuck are the Berenstein Bears?
That's one of the Mandela effects, and I mean, it's so. And that's the thing that actually really did interest me in studying the cult of Scientology, because we study the Law of One, which is like a huge writing that's really takes a very scientific look at like spirituality, and it's very much like you're polarized. So you've got left, right, up, down, north, south, and so there's dark and there's light. And their basic thing is like darkness can't create anything. About photosynthesis, like it's all the light that creates, right? That then holds the light. So they talk about like narcissists and like psychopaths. Darkness can't create. So what it does is it steals from the light and it inverts it. And so you look at Scientology and you see like, again, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali have been around for 5,000 years. And that Patanjali, which is what yoga is based off, Patanjali was basically a scientist that was like, you're overthinking shit. That's why you're sad. Like that's basically, I just summed up a 5,000-year-old text for you guys. Yoga Chittavritti Nirodha. And so, but there are yoga cults out there. Of course there are.
Oh my God.
Hello, Yogi Bhajan. I mean, there are, and I've been very lucky because I've spent a lot of time in India, and in my school, it was very much not culty. Like my teacher didn't even know where the hell I lived. Like we had to go find her. Like it was like you just come to class and like
what?
Like, and when you're in India, it's like you just find your own place. Like it doesn't care that you're a white chick walking around. You stick out like a sore thumb, And he actually, we would get up early in the morning for Brahma Muhurta, but unlike a cult. He would, if he saw you out about in this town late in the evening, he'd be like, you need to go home and get some sleep. Because that's one thing cults do, right? Is they deprive you of sleep. But my teacher was always like, you need to go to bed. You need sleep. Like you need to make sure. So he checked off not the non-cults, but there are a lot of yoga cults out there.
Oh
but
my God, yeah.
Interesting, especially anything that deals with the mind can be manipulated for the bad.
Yeah.
And now, so Nora, were you born? I meant to lead with this, but weird sounds so much. Were you born into Scientology? Are you a born in or?
I'm a born in. I was born in 1976. I'm a bicentennial baby, and both my parents were already in Scientology. My mom got in 1970. My dad got in, I believe, in 1971 or 72, right after he got home from Vietnam. His bestie in Vietnam was like, bro, I just found this cool thing. And like, he got into it and was like in like Flynn, like just in. Also, my dad was a cutie. And so all these ladies were like, hi, you're cute. And he's like, yeah, girl, I know Scientology, like he was working. It was the 70s. But like, this is what I try to explain to people. Like there are different eras of Scientology. There's the OG Scientology, like the people who've been in since 1950. Some of those people are still around. They consider themselves Hubbardites, like Dianeticists, like they're OG. Like, then there's the people like Hannah Whitfield, who was an original Sea Org member when the Sea Org was formed in 1967. He personally invited her with a handwritten letter, like, I choose you to come sail the seas with me, right? And then there's people like my mom and my dad who got in the 70s, where Scientology at that point, like L. Ron's out in the ocean avoiding tax, tax evasion, all this shit. Scientology was like a party. My mom said there was no party like a Scientologist party, right? So they would do their work during the day, and then they would fucking go down to a bar and get drunk and like eat pizza and do weird shit, go watch The Godfather 87 times, right? And they were having a good time because on every corner where she was in San Francisco, there was another. She'd be in competition with the Hare Krishnas and the fucking Jonestown people and the other people. Like, bitch, no, this is my corner. I'm getting people to come to my cult. You go cult over there, right? So it was a high time. Again, a post-war era where people are totally fucked up. We have the civil rights revolution. We have the free love movement. People are rebelling against this Americana bullshit. Free love is everywhere. These kids, like my mom and my dad, are bucking the system, and they were unloved. They were, traumatized as children, and they're looking for belonging. They're looking for their tribe, and there were a lot of tribes to choose from in the 70s, right? And so both my parents, through their various traumas, which I've now inherited, thanks so much, fell into Scientology and had me, right? And my mom at the time was working for the Guardian's office, which is like the original version of the Office of Special Affairs. Scientology, outside of like Catholicism, and by that I mean like the papacy in Rome and shit, is the only religion that I know of that has its own like CIA wing, right? Yeah. Like we know finding out, like all this stuff, that the Catholic religion definitely is like the keeper of a lot of secrets and shit, and the Illuminati and blah, 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 and all this, like, woo. Okay. Yeah. Scientology has its own secret wing known as the Office of Special Affairs now, but previously the Guardian's office. And the Guardian's office was totally separate from Scientology. It was meant to police internal things going on, making sure people were doing Scientology correctly, and also to eliminate any threat to L. Ron Hubbard or Scientology. Okay, like be on top of that. They were like, and that's the same thing that the Office of Special Affairs does, right? And that they still do today. So my mom was there. My dad was getting trained as like a Scientology practitioner and auditor. He was doing a lot of auditing, but he was used by that spy wing to do like missions. He was a freelance, provocateur, let's put it that way, for them, and did participate in Operation Snow White, which is still the singly largest infiltration of the United States government.
That's wild to me.
By any group.
I mean, Scientology's got that like beat out of all the cults. Like the fact that they were able to, I mean, you guys, like that. Does Going Clear go into that, or was it the Aftermath show that went into that?
The Aftermath show went into that. Going Clear like touched on it for a second, because you could really do, and I hope someday that someone does a full documentary about Operation Snow White, because how they infiltrated the government was so thank you, babe. Was so diabolical, I'll say, because they literally, there was not an echelon of the United States government that they did not have someone planted into. And they did it brilliantly. They didn't try to come in at the top and be like, oh, hi, I'm the new CEO. I like the new executive position. Like my dad got a job in the mail room at the government building in Sacramento. He was literally working in the mailroom, just the guy like, oh, hey, here's your mail, ba-dum, 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 boom, boom, and just being his personality self.
Innocuous, just very innocuous, just very,
You just got to be there, do the job. I mean, sorting mail, how fucking hard is that? And you get to, find out where all the things are because you're delivering the mail.
Yeah.
Right. So, where all the rooms are, where all the cabinets are. I mean, it's really brilliant. And they did that everywhere, and they stole, I don't even remember what the volume of files is. It's in the like millions of documents that they stole, and they didn't just they were really just trying to like erase any bad information about L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology, Mary Sue Hubbard, right? And what's interesting is there's like and this is something I didn't know, but I just found this out recently. I don't think my dad was a part of this, but like apparently the people who are running the operation were in a Reformation kind of like coven. They were trying to reform Scientology, right? So they may have had other intentions in gathering this info, like as in spilling the beans to the Scientologists, like, hey, this guy's a fucking con artist. If you want real Scientology, you just keep doing these things. Like the guy who started Avatar, right? Have you looked into the Avatar cult?
No, but I'm gonna write that down.
Scientology. The guy was a mission holder, an original mission holder in New York. And then when all the shit started happening after Operation Snow White and David Miscavige took over, he was like, the missions had to pay like a 10% tithe of their earnings, right? Like very similar to Mormon. You just had to pay up the line. So Miscavige comes in and now he wants 15%. And he wants all these other things to change. And he was like, that's not what the policy says. The policy says this. I'm going to do the policy. So he kept doing the policy and they're like, bro, you owe us money. He's like, okay, well, I'm not going to pay you. So then he was continuing to deliver Scientology because he believed in it. And then they sued him because his building said Church of Scientology, like Mission of Scientology. So they sued him for trademark infringement. And he knew it was coming. So he started basically gathering up all of the truths that he wanted from Scientology and registered a whole other corporation and then started the Avatar cult, which is basically like, it is filled with ex-Scientologists. It is like, it's just all Dianetics principles essentially, but like it costs less money to become a wizard in Avatar.
I'm totally like, well, you know, this is the thing, Nora, and I think my channel gets this, and I hate it when I hear people say like, I could never fall for a cult. Cults look for really super smart people. They're not looking for dumbasses. My friend Kelly Teal is a survivor of the Nexium cult. You know, and she's so smart. Like they look for people who are smart, who are empathic, who want to do right by humanity, and
who want to fix themselves. If you're an introspective person, if you're like, you know what, I feel like I could be better. I feel like there's something in my life that's just a little, what is that? What is that thing? And someone goes, I know what that thing is.
Come this way.
No, come right here. I'm going to show you.
Take a personality test.
Finally, somebody gets it, right? It's all the same pitch. It's all this, what you're missing in life, why you're sad, why you're this, why you're that. And they also glom onto people who are trying to solve problems without seeking out medical help, right? And this is not to shit on medical help. I've gotten a lot of medical help. I was terrified of psychologists, psychiatrists. We were told the mythology in Scientology is that every single psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist on planet Earth is the reincarnation of intergalactic overlords that are sent here to enslave all mankind. So no big deal. Just go see one. Go see one. Sure. You left Scientology. Go sit down in a therapist's office and talk to an intergalactic overlord.
And that ingrains in you, right? Like that it's almost like people who grow up are grandfathered into like Christian homes, even though they might not gel with the religion. There are certain fears that creep up out of nowhere sometimes, and it's hard to like. I like the whole injury thing, the brain injury. And the thing is, this is what I get. Like one of my favorite quotes, Nora, is two things can be true, because very rarely in life are things black and white. And when a group paints another group as completely bad, like psychiatry, are there bad psychiatrists out there? Absolutely. Look at Jody Hildebrandt and the Rudy we were just talking about. Other Mormons, some other Mormons, you know. But like my therapist was amazing, you know, and I agree with you too. Like I come from a family of doctors, and there are definite problems with Western medicine for sure. There's lots of stuff that can be totally taken care of with like change of diet and nutrient. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that can be fixed with simple verses, but it's a business, right? And so, but yet there are good doctors out there that will recommend. I had a doctor for a long time that resisted putting me on arthritis medication and would try to get me just to do more turmeric, you know? And so that was a good doctor, right? To try to do like more of more nutrient based versus medicine. But so the fact that they paint, so you grow up being terrified. So you have all these people that come out of Scientology because they know it's screwed up, but then they're terrified to actually seek proper care.
And see, that's kind of a fallacy too. Most people escape Scientology. They don't just like generally just like I just felt like stop going one day and then I stopped and now I'm not a Scientologist. Most people have a excruciatingly like John Le Carre version of getting out of Scientology. Some people were kicked out, like specifically of the Sea organization, and other people I know a couple of people who just like, they quietly stopped doing it. They just stopped talking about it. And then they started researching stuff on the internet. But the majority of people who leave Scientology, even when they're doing it quietly, are terrified.
Yeah.
They are absolutely in terror that, you know, Googling Scientology is going to bring, you know, the entire power and force of Scientology down upon them, because it's not in Scientology. It's not a heaven and hell thing. It's not like your afterlife is going to be fucked kind of thing. There are some stuff about that, but that's not really what you fear. What you fear is that you're doing something wrong. You're going to have to self-report on that. Then you're going to be punished for confessing what you did was wrong. And then if something bad happens to you, you're still wrong. You did a bad thing, not that person. I mean, Danny Masterson is the prime example of that, right? This is a man who was repeatedly, and I do mean repeatedly, raping and sexually assaulting women, drugging them, and then brutally harming these women. And these women finally became brave enough to go to the authorities of the church, okay, the chaplain, who in any other organization, you're a chaplain, you're a man of God, you're somebody to be trusted, you can confide in them. They went to the chaplain, they went to the president's office, which is how you deal with celebrities. And they were basically told, well, what did you do? What did you do? And you've upset Danny now. Now Danny's upset. And also one person was literally told that Danny wasn't like high enough in Scientology to be able to confront the fact that he had done these crimes. So we can't really hold him accountable.
But he's a grown-ass man. I'm sorry. I believe, you know, and I had a hard time when that trial was going on. I actually tried to follow it, but it was so brutal. What his crimes were so, and not like, I mean, all assault is assault. I'm not saying that but just the magnitude. He was just running amok. He had no consequences until finally he got consequences. But that is gaslighting. As a victim, for you to come and say this has happened to me, and then make it and I will say, I speaking of that, because I don't want to forget to commend you for this. Poe on the Go. You called him out for some stuff, and I, in my video, responded to that as well, because when I was dealing with my narcissist, I was actually strangled one night, and I had to call.
Oh my God.
And I literally, I remember, I think the wife was actually leaving me, and the dog shat on the floor, and he dropped me at that point. So this dog saved my life. So now I've dedicated to saving dogs' lives. But and I reached my phone and called 911. Well, he ran off. So I filed a report with 911. The next day, I went with my parents to the police station to actually file an official police report. Still like marks on my neck, you know.
Yeah.
The police sat there and looked at me, and he said the same thing. Well, what did you do to provoke it? And I remember,
and this is where Darvo comes in, right? Yeah. And I didn't know what Darvo was. So Darvo is an acronym that stands for deny, attack. The RVO is reverse, victim, and offender. I call it the reversi uno, right? Scientology is an entire religion that has weaponized Darvo, right? It's happened. You and I know this as women. It happens to women all the time. We are victim shamed. We are slut shamed. We are everything shamed. Like, oh, what were you wearing? Why were you out so late? Did you have a drink? No one holds the attacker, the narcissist, the abuser accountable. It's always the victim. The victim had some part in it. She should have known better. Blah, 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 blah. I am so like, once I got to, I mean, we're skipping all my story, which is fine. But like,
I still want to get back to your story though. But
I'm going to get back to my story. But like recently, last year, in the last 2 years, I've gone through a lot. Okay, mentally, physically. When I came back on YouTube, almost immediately, I got my very own and in the very first like internet cyber stalker. Okay, and I'm not going to mention his name here. Most people know who he is. He has his channel. He's on Rumble. He's doing all these things. He started attacking me on a daily basis via the internet, video after video, sometimes 2 or 3 videos a day, making pornographic images of me, attacking my children, my wife. He doxed where I was working, like the exact location, started pretending like he was going to call human resources to get me fired, encouraging his audience to call, like, look where she is on the map and blah, 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 blah. Like I started fearing for my life. I became completely unglued, just like every bit of therapy that I had been through prior to that, just out the window. I couldn't sleep. I was obsessed. I could not feel safe in any moment. I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't operate. And I finally had to tell my wife, like, this is it. Like, I can't take this anymore. Like, it's very bad. So she sat down on the couch with me and we called the crisis hotline, and I had this amazing woman, Amanda, who answered the phone on that call. Thank you so much. Just like talked me off a tree, just like, and was like, okay, here's where we're going to get you. We're going to get you in with this person. We're going to get you in this. We're going to sign you up for this group therapy while we wait for IOP to open. Like, do you want to go to inpatient? Do you want to go to outpatient? Like, it was like Solutionsville. It wasn't like, oh, well, we're so sorry that you're feeling insane right now. Like, well, please call back after 3 because we're at lunch. Like, this woman, like, she was like, boop, 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 boop. And because of my, I don't even know what to characterize it. I mean, it's being held against your will, but I was held against my will for 3 years on the rehabilitation project. First, my wife was like, I don't think you want to do inpatient.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And she's like, I'm not just being selfish because I want you to be here with me and like I want to snuggle you. It's like, I think that's gonna be too triggering for you. And I was like, okay,
that's a lot of discernment for your wife. Like, that's a smart wife.
No, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. So I did intensive outpatient in conjunction with a trauma group, in conjunction with a meditation group. And I really just focused on myself, like just did all this therapy. So I'm learning all these things. And it's funny because I just redid the trauma group because I was so traumatized at that time. I got like 1% of the information, but it was good information, even that 1%. And I started like, sleeping, like really focusing on sleep. I was just napping all the time. I was like in the shit. And, a friend of mine, Jamie Mustard, along with Dr. Eugene Lipov, wrote The Invisible Machine, which is a revolutionary book. I recommend it 100%, especially for trauma survivors. But no, it's okay, babe. And this book, in the research that they found, this is a 100-year-old procedure. This procedure has been around since 1925, where they do injections at the C3 and C6 vertebrae, where the stellate ganglion nerves are. They inject... that's the book right there. They inject an anesthetic around the nerve cluster. And it's been FDA approved since like the 30s or 40s for like menopause symptoms, also for migraines, like in the 80s. And they've been working with the VA, special forces and things like that. They've been treating a lot of returning vets with this for PTSI. And what happens is that when you have complex PTSD, PTSI, your hippocampus, that little tiny bean, the little lizard brain that we're all like still equipped with that helped us survive for tens of thousands of years, instead of it just turning on when you need it, when you are in danger, it is at 1,000,000 all the time. You're never not in danger. Yeah. You're never not in danger. You are alert. You are pop, 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 pop. You're just like, you can't breathe. You can't exist. So getting that procedure, what it does is it resets your nervous system back to pre-trauma. And it doesn't take away your memories. It doesn't wipe your mind. It just resets the nervous system and lets the hippocampus go. And so your whole body and everything just like, and for the first time you feel like, oh, this is what like normal a regular person with no trauma feels like. And I found doing therapy since then, like what your EDMR therapist was saying, like there are memories that are coming back to me, but instead of them being like, like traumatizing me, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And I can like look at it and see it and not have it like be inside of me, on top of me.
Not living it again.
Exactly. So it's a totally different situation. It's approved in other countries. They've been doing it in Australia for like decades. And in England as well. There's Stella centers all over the place that Eugene Lipov opened these centers called Stella centers. But it is revolutionary. Again, science, right? He just, if you read the book, you find out like he was doing this on patients for other types of pain management. And then he was hearing from people who had CPTSI who were like also like war vets who were there for like their back or whatever. They were like, oh my God, I can actually sleep now. I don't have nightmares.
I'm not stressed out all the time.
And started like, doing the science thing. Like, let me get some more vets in here and let's try this out, And it's like, surprisingly, Joe Rogan did an interview with a very decorated Marine from the Afghan war. He's like the youngest to ever receive the Medal of Honor, right? And that guy described getting this procedure, like he had tried everything, of course, the Xanax, everything to just, nothing worked. But he says before the needle was removed, he felt instant release. Like it can be that fast, or it can be, no, you should. I mean, listen, I got it here in Oregon from Dr. Ryan Wood. The cost varies because insurance in America doesn't cover it yet because, insurance, they got to make money. They got to make off all their other shit. But like if you go to a Stellate center, it's like $3,500 or something for the whole procedure. They do both sides of your neck. Dr. Ryan Wood here, it's for some reason, it's a really weird price. It's $2,025. I don't know how he came up with that math, but that's the math he did. And he's done 2,500 procedures. I trust him. He's a pioneer also in this procedure. You should meet him. He's fascinating and amazing. But like when we have things like this that can be life-saving for people who are suffering from various forms of CPTSI because of completely different traumas. Like I think people with trauma, we always try to be like, well, I only had that one thing, that one time. And so
doesn't matter.
I'm not a soldier from war. I'm not I'm not a cold survivor. I'm not a, it's all trauma.
Yeah. I like the brain injury. It injured you. A skint knee is a skint knee. Doesn't matter how you got it.
Boom. Exactly. So for me, I go like, I've done the exact opposite of Scientology because they also part of the doctrine is if you do other things, if you do yoga, meditation, any other type of religions, other practices, you have to only do Scientology, right? So I've dove into a lot of things. I've started, it'd be embarrassing to show you me doing yoga. I'm trying really hard. I'm doing my Apple TV with Jonelle and I'm doing the little stretches and I'm trying to get in the things just to,
I'm going to tell you something. This is going to be your mantra. I tell my students this all the time. Okay. Pretty yoga is boring. It's so boring. Messy yoga is interesting. Because as a teacher, where things are off, that's the minefield, right? So that's where it's juicy and interesting. So never be afraid. Because as yoga teacher, my teacher in India, he just recently passed away, but he used to laugh at us for putting our Instagram pictures of us doing handstands. And he'd be like, you've seen Cirque du Soleil? I've seen 8 times. They do it better. So you're just a student of yoga.
Just a student of yoga. Okay, I love it.
Sit down with your messy yoga. That's what's interesting. If you want to see pretty yoga, go to Cirque du Soleil. They do it better. So
have you seen, do you follow Yogi Brian?
No, I'm very traditional. I only follow people because I do a lineage based yoga. So I actually, this is going to sound so bad.
No. Let it out.
Follow a lot of yoga people because frankly, they annoy me. Just like
Yogi Brian came up in my feed, and I would say that he, much like a lot of people who, like Brad Warner, who's a Buddhist, he teaches not Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
And he does it with like a punk rock flair, right? Like he's a punk rock American guy. Like my favorite book of his is called Sit Down and Shut Up because it's like, and he goes into the whole like history of it and everything. And he learned from, like, he went to Japan, learned from a guy. And then he was basically like, okay, I'm going to take like how you just distilled that book in like one thing, like you're thinking too much, like he basically did that with meditation. And it's like, I'm like, oh, okay. So meditation is just like sit down and shut the fuck up and just like breathe and your thoughts come and they go and just breathe. Like it's all good. Like don't get it twisted. You don't have to make it complicated. And so Yogi Brian's thing is like, what cracks me up about him is it appeals, I think, especially to me as like a Gen X person, where he's like, okay, fuckers, sit the fuck down. Let's let out our fucks. Okay. Breathe in and breathe out. Fuck. He's just like, and I'm like, yes, like let it out, you know.
Yeah, that's
I
a
don't.
lot of Ashtanga. My lineage, they're
Okay.
covered, like my boyfriend's covered in tattoos. He was born in, I like how you say, he was born in 1972. He's 11 years older than me. I always have to remind people that he got a young one. I'm always like, hey, you're out of all your friends, your girl is not in menopause yet. You know, I just need, 'cause he's a
It's
70.
coming. Don't
I
joke
know,
about
it's
menopause. It's like
coming, it's
voodoo.
coming.
Don't joke about it.
But he literally saw a Details magazine when he was like in his early 20s, because this is before the internet, and he saw all these people covered in tattoos with their legs behind their head. He was like, that looks cool. And so he just flew to India. He just flew to India. Like, I think sometimes back in that generation, I think we'll Gen X, because I'm cusping a millennial and Gen X. I think I'm a Zennial is what they call.
Yeah, you're a Zennial, like my wife. Yeah.
And I think y'all's generation, you're the fuck around and find out generation. So I think that there was like a toughness, because he was like, I'm just gonna go find this fat little Indian guru and just knock on his door and be like, I'm here, teach me.
Bro, I saw you in Details. What's up? What's good?
And
show me how.
But I love that. I hate when people, that's one thing I hate about, because a lot of yoga people get all flowery, and I'm like, no, just be real. Like, this is what this is. You are fucking yourself over with your mind, but it's not your fault if you've got trauma. There's an injury. We know that now, right? So there's even more.
Can we just call it out, though? The real problem was eat, pray, love. It fucked it up. It fucked it up.
I can't stand eat, pray, love. I know.
It fucked it up. It fucked. It's like she almost got it. Like she was getting to the point. If you read the book, you're like, okay, you're getting there. And then it's like, now I'm fucking this guy. Like, no, you fucking missed the point.
I'm going to tell you, speaking of eat, pray, love, I'll tell you this. So my teacher in India, they're very blunt too. They're very blunt.
Sure.
And so whenever like you would come back and you maybe gained a little bit of weight, my teacher would be like, why belly coming? Like, why belly coming? And that was always my greatest fear. And I'd be like, dude, I'm PMSing. It'll be gone in a week. But I had a friend from Malaysia who got married in between trips to India. And she got a little honeymoon, extra little honeymoon pounds put on her. And she was in the office registering for class, and she was saying, well, I don't want to do this particular class because, I've gained some weight. And he goes, yes, I can see. And she looks at me and goes, and she goes, and so have you. Straight and that's what I love about that, real raw. Have you ever, one of my favorite teachers that I unfortunately never got the opportunity to meet before he passed away is Ram Dass. Have you ever read any of his books?
No.
Oh, he makes me cry. Like okay, so for those who don't, I know we're a little off topic, but if this helps anybody, Ram Dass' birth name is Richard Alpert. He passed away in 2019, right before he was like 88, right before 2020 happened. I think he was kind of like, peace out, guys. Y'all deal with this. I'm done. I'm done. I've done my work. But he was with Tim Leary he was a professor at Hubbard of psychology.
Oh, wow.
And back in like the LSD time, he and Tim Leary got approved by Harvard to actually do drugs, to study its effects on the brain.
Right.
And I think they got a little too into it.
And Timothy did.
and Ram Dass ended up like just going to India, and he met Neem Karoli Baba, who was his teacher, and he changed his name. And and his books, I just finished again Polishing the Mirror, which is right here, you guys, Polishing the Mirror by Ram Dass. And he talks a lot about suffering and like and it was interesting to read, like, again, I've read it before, I just reread it for another course, and his perspective from a spiritual place of suffering, because there is, there is and we have come so far in psychology, but it's just the consciousness around suffering too. And I think sometimes it's just nice to know that if something bad happens to you, it's not your fault. It's what it is. And here you are. And then sometimes he talks about that suffering is what kicks you into your own awakening, because you have no choice. You have no choice but to really seek and go into yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put the book link, The Invisible Machine Guys, down in the description box below as well, because I'm going to order it too, because I seriously.
Oh, yeah.
It also Nora, have you heard of trepanation?
Which is the word?
Trepanation or trepanning.
What is that?
Oh, girl, we watched a documentary and I was like, huh, the whole time, but it's kind of this accidental.
Definitely 10 stars.
My boyfriend wants to go have it done. We can't do it in the United States, so he's got to go to Mexico to do it. It's putting a hole in your head.
Oh, no.
So
nope.
This is what they found all these skulls all over the world of these people with these holes in their heads. They realized that this was, you know how monks used to have the hair? It's because they were trepanned. And they would drill this tiny little hole in your head. And what it does, and they've rediscovered this. I'm kind of missing a point here. They rediscovered this because people were having like car accidents, like things were happening where they would have like a tiny little hole in their skull. And kind of like the same thing with the shots you're saying about with this other, is all of a sudden the doctors would fix the skull as best as possible, but there would still be this tiny little, like very small, like hole in their skull. Not you could even see it once it healed. But they would report that they were all of a sudden having these like amazing, like sleeping better, anxiety was gone, they were calmer. And so all of these people started coming together. And of course we have this historical stuff. And what's happening is when that hole is put in your skull, more blood comes into the brain.
Okay.
The brain can't move in the skull. So anyway, it's fascinating. And so now there's this huge like movement of people. Some people are doing it to themselves.
How? No, don't. No. But how big is this hole? I mean, is it like
tiny? You can't even. So people who have it done, there's specific places in the skull, and they'll like move their hair, and you just kind of see this small. You can't even notice it. Like once someone's healed, you don't notice it. But I literally, and they say you can't really. It's not as painful as it like. It's really bloody. It's
well, like because the skin on your head, you get like a little nick. It's like, you know.
I just like can't, and like it's just like when I would see them, like I couldn't. We were like laying in bed watching this, and he was like all fascinated. I was like with the covers over my head, like this.
Right.
But in some cultures, they would do it when they felt like people had demon attachments. They would trepan.
Right.
They still do it in Africa, like these little tribes. They'll trepan. And I'm like, my boyfriend has been in a constant quest for enlightenment since he was a kid and thought he saw an alien on a military base. So
he probably did. I mean, we know they're there now. So like, that was real. It's okay.
So he's like, he wants to go to Mexico and get trepanned. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't go with you because I will pass the fuck out. Like I will. But it kind of, it's interesting. All these little things that are created for one thing are happening. Oh, and trepanning also, some medical institutions will do it with insurance for migraines, for people who have migraines.
That was like the one thing they didn't offer me. I mean, I did the Botox. I'm on the Lady Gaga medicine now, the Nurtec. Thanks, Lady Gaga. And that worked. But like, I think also getting the shots has also helped my migraine symptoms like tremendous. I mean, I went from like 22 to 25 migraine days a month. Month.
That's like the whole month.
Like, yeah, basically to like none or maybe like a half one with Nurtec. And it's funny because some people take Nurtec and they're like, that shit made me worse. And this is the problem, guys, with modern medicine. This is my problem with modern medicine, is that it's not a one size fits all.
No,
this is why seatbelts don't work for women, because they got the fucking dummy that's an average size man. This is why gloves don't fit, because they're for men. They don't measure women's hands. This is why like vests and stuff don't fit, because they don't do booby measurements and things. It's like they take the one thing, they test the one thing, and then it's for everybody. And it's not. All of our brains are brains, right? But we're all a jigsaw, the same jigsaw puzzle put together differently. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And so it's not all gonna like do the same thing for the same person. You know, like one person can take Lexapro as an example for antidepressant, and they're like, fuck, it saved my life. And another person takes it, they're like, I hallucinated fucking wicked in my living room. Like, fuck.
Right.
You know, so like, no. But they don't have a way. There's so much that's unknown about the brain. It's insane to me that we're like focusing on going to Mars. First of all, we don't know what's in the fucking ocean, and we don't know what makes the brain, how the brain works. But let's get to Mars, guys. Let's get to fucking Mars. That's the key. I mean, like, what are we doing? We need to fully understand this. Yeah. Like for real, like, what is it doing? How do the synapses work? How can we regrow them? What does this all have to do with stuff? I mean, it's like every time I watch a documentary about, you know, how Americans are all killing ourselves with our diet, and we've ruined our, you know, our natural intuition, our guts fucked, and like all this stuff. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just dead already. Like I'm just dead woman walking. Because how do we combat that? Right? Yeah. It's always like, where do I go to get the non-GMO food? Do I have to start a farm? Like, is that even legal? You know, like there's just like no, you know what I mean? Like everything then becomes overwhelming. And so we just do the things that we can to survive. And then you have the Twinkie and you feel a little bad about it. And then you're like, whatever. Okay, I had a Twinkie.
You know, I was researching because when I was a kid, I used to get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every lunch. And for my British audience, I know I have an Australians and a lot of you guys. When we say jelly, we mean jam. So it's not as gross as you think it is.
Oh God! Ooh, that kind of jelly.
Jello, yeah. Peanut butter from the 80s and the 90s. I didn't even realize this. Totally different.
Yeah, it was made with actual peanuts. It was just ground peanuts.
Real peanut butter, and it was in a glass jar. Like, so even just our diets from when I mean, you guys were starved in Scientology. Let's be honest. I don't think they even really gave a shit about your like you were just.
Well, I mean, my Scientology story is different than somebody like, Jenna Miscavige or Laura Anderson, who were born into the Sea organization. Like, I grew up in a house. My parents went and did Scientology. And then when I was 8, they divorced. There was a lot of Scientological influence in my house, but I went to public school. Like I'm
that's
public.
good.
I didn't go. Well, I did go to Scientology school for some early shit, but my parents were too poor. They couldn't afford that shit. So they were like, TFB, you're going to public school, kid.
Who can't? Scientology prices are unbelievable. That's a totally different discussion, but
it's so insane. So I grew up after my parents got divorced. My dad moved to LA. And so I was going to public school. So I say like my Scientology upbringing was like Hannah Montanaing my way through life, because like at public school, I would just be like, oh, I'm on the basketball team. I'm on the softball team. I'm doing all these like boop. And then around the time I was 13, my dad laid down the hammer of Thor and was like, if you don't get these are girls in Scientology, like I'm taking them from you because you're not. Now this is a man who owed my mom tens of thousands of dollars of back child support, but he's going to take us from my mother because in Scientology he could, because she wasn't being a good Scientologist. So then my mom's throwing me on courses, we're doing things. And by the time I was 14, I had done, some rudimentary stuff to how to study, all these other things. But I also did auditing, the processing part, and attained the state of clear. I was declared a last lifetime clear, which was a big deal because at the time I was the youngest last lifetime clear. I was like 14. And so then the pressure for me to come back to my job in Scientology became even more. I mean, the first time I was offered a billionaire contract, I was 8, right? They wanted me to join the Sea Org when I was 8 years old. They could tell I was a big spirit. I was an old spirit. They tell you this stuff all the time, right? And so I would wear my clear bracelet at school and people would be like, is that medical or bracelet? You got diabetes? What's the matter with you? You're going to have a seizure? What's up with you? Why are you wearing that? And I was like, fuck, like, no, I'm clear. Bring Dianetics. Right. So I stopped wearing my clear bracelet at school because that was, man, kids in the 80s, 90s are brutal, man. They're like, what's wrong with you? You got a disease? Don't touch me. You got cooties. Like, they're literally like, and so I had to like not be assigned. I almost left high school to join the Sea Org to go be on the ship, the Free Winds, the actual like one boat they have left in their sea organization. And my mom every time would say no. She would like save me from this billionaire, debacle. And she kept trying to convince me, which was so weird. Like a huge part of her believed in Scientology, but also the mom instinct part of her saw the suffering of the children, saw that Sea Org members constantly failed, that she's like, I don't know one Sea Org member that's happy. I don't want that destiny for you. On the other hand, of course, being a red-blooded American girl, I have massive daddy issues. And my dad was like, you could be an officer. You should go do that. Bop, 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 bop. So like, I have this guy pimping me out to recruiters and my mom's like, I want you to be happy and be fulfilled and like, do what you want, I guess. I mean, but still trying to like actively be Scientology. Like she was wrestling with this thing for a long time. And so of course I joined at the age of 18 after working at a Scientology school as a PE teacher, because once you graduate regular high school, you are qualified to teach other kids. Like that's science. You don't have to have a fucking teaching credential.
You're still a kid yourself.
I was 18. I was teaching my own little sister. Put yourself in that position. You've got a sibling who's 3 years younger than you, who you're like, can you stop talking? Stop talking. We're reading now.
She's like,
She was like, I'm gonna fucking kick your ass. She was taller than me. I was like, I'm gonna send you to ethics right now. Do it. Play me. Do it. Do it. I know where you live, literally. Like, it was awful. It ruined our relationship for a long time. And then I joined the Sea Org. I joined at Celebrity Center International, where, Tom Cruise and all the cool people go. I should have known I was in trouble from the start, because Celebrity Center is, and they may have changed this now, but there's like this little checklist you have to attest to before they will accept you and let you sign the billion-year contract. They ask you all these questions. Are you here to meet people, to get famous? Are you here to like further your acting career? Are you here somehow are you just here to hook up and network, right? But one of the questions is, do you have homosexual tendencies? And that question stopped me in my tracks, because I was unbelievably closeted. Okay. It was the 90s. Being gay, being a dyke, being a lesbian, it's a bad word. You were fucking scum. You were gross. This is the pre-Glee era, kids. Okay. We didn't have fucking dancing gays being like, it's gay day. Woo! Everybody's gay. No, it was like, oh, you're gay? Ew. Don't sit next to me.
That was one thing I had my list of questions for you, was the homosexuality with Scientology, because that's like we see in the Christian. Well, I mean, in some more fundamentalist sects, it's still a big deal. In most Christian churches, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. But it is crazy, because I was, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I forget. How discriminated homosexuals were in the because now
we grew up in the HIV era. Guys. Remember, HIV was rampant. Hundreds, thousands of people were dying daily of HIV. So if it was like you were gay, you have AIDS. People would literally be like, "Oh, he's got AIDS!" Like on the fucking playground. You have like little kindergartners going like, "Ew, don't give me your AIDS. You have an AIDS sandwich." Like it was like, and we called everything gay. Oh my God, this water bottle's so gay. That's gay. It's gay. It wasn't like the way we used words in the 80s and 90s is so. My kids are like, "Mom, you cannot say that.
You're so not politically correct." The R word, calling people that was just normal.
First of all, the R word didn't have anything to do with someone with Down syndrome. I've explained this to my kids a million times. It had nothing. None of us were thinking about. We were just thinking it's the dumbest thing that's ever occurred. That's it. And it was about a thing, not about and if you called a person that, you were telling them basically you're a dumb fuck.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to swear, and we didn't know that was slang. Like my mom is still like she'll because she's from the fucking 40s, and she's like, that guy's crippled. And I'm like, Mom, what? He is. Look at him. Mom, no, Mom, no. Bad mom, get the spray bottle out. No.
My grandparents were the worst when they were still around. They just recently passed away. My grandfather, he died in 2017, and he didn't mean anything by it, but he would say stuff all the time that would embarrass the shit out of. But he didn't. But it was same as us with the R word. There was not a mean bone in his body. But
but people of that generation would just be like, "Oh, you're colored." That's interesting.
Exactly.
Are you originally from here, or were your parents slaves? Fun. Interesting. Hey, you're Asian. Which Asian are you? Are you from China?
Or Oriental? That was
more
a word
fun countries. Are you an
Oriental
exotic Asian? Like they would just start out like, you're very exotic. No, stop right there. Stop. Like it was normal. Like, how's the weather? Are you Chinese?
Yes. Well, my grandfather called everybody from Latin America a Mexican. That would embarrass me. My grandmother, so down here in the South, and this is so embarrassing, you guys, please don't judge me for this. This is just this generation. My grandmother, who had a painting of the house that she grew up in their house always, this big painting. She grew up in South Georgia. Her family was very prominent. And every time someone would come in, she would show them the painting, because we do that in the South. We paint our houses, of her house she grew up in. And the first thing she would say is, it was built by slave labor. Like it was a pride thing, because that meant it was valuable. when my boyfriend met her, she had Alzheimer's really bad. And so she told him that story like 20 times on the first visit.
Of course.
I was just like mortified the whole time. She meant nothing by it, but
no. I mean, when our hickey grandparents get Alzheimer's, it's kind of the best because they get so wild. I mean, my grandmother had Alzheimer's so bad. We sat down to dinner, and it was the first time I was introducing my dad's side of the family to my then fiance, my ex-husband. And she sits down and she's like, "Who's that man next to you, Nora?" And I was like, It's my fiance, Nana." "Oh, okay." Like 5 minutes later, "Who's that man next to you?" I said, "Nana, he's a stripper we hired for you. He's going to get naked." "Oh, Nora Beth. Oh, Nora Beth. You stop that." Every time she asks, I was like, "He's a NASA astronaut. He's a spy. Now I have to kill you because I told you that." "Oh, Nora Beth." Like, because she just kept asking.
Well, and that is,
and then I'd be like, "You see someone next to me? What's wrong, Nan? Are you having a stroke?"
is that a ghost? Well, and the funny thing though, I will say, I've heard you talk about your step whore, which I like too, because I have a terrible stepmother as well. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, and she got diagnosed with Alzheimer's because she was this real prim and proper Southern lady from the South who made her sweets with pineapple juice in it. And she was, "What can I get for you?" Go sit, very.
Oh yeah.
And then she got, because they start speaking the truth at that point.
Oh, they just let it out.
I'd never heard this woman curse a day in her life. She was sitting at the kitchen table and she goes, "She's a cunt." Georgia grandmother, prim and proper with pearls.
Bless her. I love it.
Just
let it out, sister.
I mean, I was like, thank you, God. At least somebody else sees it, yeah. But yeah, I don't even remember. But yeah, I actually want, because you got the RPF. You've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Can you explain what? And we went from you're teaching PE to your sister.
Yeah, and so I joined the Sea Org at Celebrity Center. I'm there for 5 years, from January 1995 until March of 2000, and from, I want to say, like late 1998, because it was about 18 months, I fell in love with my roommate, who was not a man, and now. This is the most tame, but also the most lesbian love affair of all time. So there's a big rule in Scientology, in the Sea organization, where you cannot do anything sexually with the person you want to be with until you are married. Like literally, you can hold hands, you can hug, but not too much, and you can kiss. Okay, you can French kiss. That's it. And then you have to get married. So I mean, I could go on and on about the child marriage and all this other stuff and all that other stuff. I was, at this time, I'm in my early 20s. I fell in love with this woman, and we had kissed. It was closed mouth. We would like lay in the bed next to each other, and like, like our pinkies would be touching, and it was very electric. We wrote each other tomes, just like these lesbian tomes of love and devotion. And people were constantly trying to catch us because the second I joined the Sea Org, a senior executive, Renee Duzak, was like, "This bitch is gay, like fuck her." And she kept for 5 years trying to prove that I was gay. Even when I got married, that didn't prove it to her. I got that annulled. That's a whole other story. I had another fiance for a long time. Whole thing. So she was hell bent on proving that I was gay. So this girl and I were carrying on in this torrid love affair, and nobody could catch us. They moved our rooms. They did all these things. So one night, a senior executive, she calls me into her dorm, and I didn't know, but she was tape recording me. And she's like, "Listen, everybody knows about you guys. You should just confess. It'll be easier if you guys just come clean, blah, 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 blah." And the next day was Monday, which we had Monday morning drilling, where we would drill like fire drills and all this stuff. And so I spent that whole night, I did not sleep. I was thinking, like, everybody knows. Like, I believed it. Like, why wouldn't I believe her? She's a senior executive. So I thought, what am I going to do? I had my mom's car because she lent it to me for Saturday night so I could go. And there wasn't laundry at where we lived, which was, we called it the Wilcox. It's now called Mama something shelter. It's an actual hotel you can stay in Los Angeles. Now, and they charge like hundreds of dollars a night. Anyway.
Well, there's a weird juju in that hotel.
It's weird. Trust me, people have been born in that place. They were fucking died in that place. That place has some talk about haunted.
Yeah.
So I decide to sit down and confess to her. She tape recorded the whole thing. We get put under what's called separation order, which means that you're no contact, no talking, no looking, no nothing, no being in the same room, no separation, or you cannot have any contact. So I made the mistake of not saying to her, listen, I've just been told, everybody knows, like, we should come clean. Like, we should talk about how we're going to talk about this. So I just confess. She gets pulled in. They confront her. She's like, that's all lies. Cause we had been lying, we're like, that's not true, and then they played for her the tape. And then that like broke her heart that I had done that without talking to her. And so immediately we were put on what's called MEST work. MEST stands for matter, energy, space, and time, but it's essentially hard labor. You're just made to do hard labor. We're like scrubbing fountains with bleach. We're fucking, just construction. You're doing hard construction with no protective equipment or anything like that. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And so we're doing that. I was doing that for 3.5 months there at Celebrity Center. And finally, I wrote to a senior executive outside of Celebrity Center to be like, what the fuck is happening here? I don't want to just keep doing this. Either kick me out or send me to the RPF, whatever the fuck you're doing. The first thing they had tried to do when they found out about this torrid affair, that it would even be rated G. I mean, geez Louise, Disney would do this version. They sent up a petition to the International Justice Chief's office, which is located in that building where the near the test center, but not the test center, where the life exhibition is. Okay, it's where OSA is and stuff in that building. They sent a petition up to declare me a suppressive person because I'm gay, because I seduced this person who was an executive. Even though my statistics, the one thing that you have in Scientology is your statistics. Okay, like whatever your job is measured in people in the corporate world, KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, right? But you have your job. My job was clearing words. So number of words cleared. That was it. So I had to count every time I cleared a word with a person. It was another. I was at that time in 2000, the highest producing word clearer on planet Earth. Okay. Nobody had statistics like that. I was in the condition of power, which means basically you're not supposed to have any ethics, like actions taken against you. Right. Like I was sitting pretty. Okay. Yeah. But they still sent this petition up. I had a friend in that office, in the International Justice Chief office, who just saw the petition, sent it immediately back, rejected it with a note on top. Nora is not an SP. You handle this. They were furious. They were fucking furious. So the interrogations got more intense. They got more heated, more pressure. And then during the L. Ron Hubbard birthday event, which happens on March 13th, a call came through, right? Like this call comes through and I can tell something's happening because I literally was like hanging out in the security office, watching the cameras with them. And I was like, y'all want some pizza? I want pizza. I'm just going to buy some pizza. And so I had all these pizzas brought over and we're just like fucking chilling, eating pizza. And then I see security's liberator. And like all these things start happening. And I'm like, it's going down. Tonight's the night. It's going down. But everybody else was over at the Shrine Auditorium at the event. So it was just me and security in the building. So I went and I sat down and I wrote letters to my friends, to the people that I cared about the most, to apologize, to tell them that I loved them and that I didn't know what was happening right now. Like either I'm being booted or I'm being sent to the RPF, but either way, I love you. And if I do go to the RPF, please write to me because that's a rule on the Rehabilitation Project Force that you are not allowed to communicate with anyone who is not on the RPF. Your family, your friends, other people who are CERN members, you can only talk to RPFers. And if you want to talk to a CERN member, they have to address you first, and then you may engage in a conversation with them.
It's so dehumanizing.
It's very dehumanizing. And then I called my mom and I said, Mom, listen, I don't know what's happening exactly right now. Something's happening. She already knew that I was like in all this trouble. She had found one of the notes in my pocket. She did my laundry and she was like, "Are you in love with this person? Like, are you gay?" And I was like, "Ah, okay,"
Yeah.
whole thing. She's like, "If you're gay, I love you. It's okay. Like, it's fine." And it was this whole thing. So, so I called her and I said, "Listen, one of two things is happening. Either you're going to get another call from me tonight, like around 11 p.m. when everybody gets back, and I'm going to need you to come pick me up because I'm being kicked out of the Sea Org, or I'm going to the RPF, and here's the address to write to me at. I will not be able to write to you. I will not be able to call you.
Yeah.
So if you don't hear from me again tonight, I've been sent there. You will only see me if I just happen to be outside."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, well, I'll stay up to find out what happens." So they came back. These two ethics officers come in. They're just like fucking fury on their face. Fury. The commanding officer, Dave Pettit, who's like the most closeted man in the entire universe, is just like, whoa, like just shoves this goldenrod at me. Now, most people's assignment to the RPF is like 2 or 3 pages. It's just a tome of like all of the bad things that they did, just horrific crimes, right? Mine was 1 sentence. Nora Sova has gone out to D with another Sea Org member. Now, out to D means you violated that rule of no sex before marriage.
Right.
Okay.
They didn't say it was lesbian, or they just said,
Oh my God, no! No? Nora's a big fat lesbo.
That is
burn the building down.
This is what's crazy about Scientology too, because in a lot of ways, Scientology is not super fundamentalist like some religions, but in some ways, it's super fundamentalist, like the no sex before marriage, homosexuality. Like, this is what's crazy. Like, it's like these two polar opposites, but then you also believe in like aliens and all this kind of stuff, and
Yeah, but you don't find out about Xenu until you've paid bajillion dollars and you're safe to know that info. So like most Scientologists have no idea what that is. That's why I tell protesters, like, don't fucking make signs about Xenu. They're just going to send the old, OTs out to be like, "Get off my lawn." Like people who are young and haven't reached that level have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
And then they will lie to the face of people.
Yeah.
If somebody says, "I saw a sign that says Xenu," what's this? What's that? "Oh, that's nothing. No such thing." They'll just straight up lie. "Oh, those people are SPs."
Yeah.
So I get sent, and the person running the RPF, Alex Meyer, had been a friend of mine since I was 12. Because I like to joke that Scientology is the smallest town on planet Earth. So they just, I don't get to go home and pack stuff, nothing. They just like take me to another building from Celebrity Center.
That's trauma too.
Oh yeah, they're just literally kidnapping me and bring me to this other building, to the blue complex, that's seen from space. And they sit me down in this man's office, in Alex's office, and he's like got this smirk on his face and he's laughing. He's like, "I didn't think I was gonna see you here. Oh no. You thought you were too good for my program." And I'm like, "Fuck you." And then the ethics officer is like, "You need to get your manners in right now." And Alex is like, It's fine. We're friends. We know each other. It's fine." So I said, he goes, "What, are you gonna do this program or what?" Because before they bring you upstairs, they make you sign. It's a very legal, very real waiver, that inside the waiver, they don't want you to read it, but I did read part of it. And part of the waiver states that you are on this program voluntarily and you may leave any time you wish because you are voluntarily doing this program.
This is a legal loophole. Would they have let you leave, Nora?
No. I tried to run away several times.
And
I even pointed that out.
Like Mike Renner and other people were kept in the hole. Like,
right. With the hole, they didn't sign that waiver. That was a whole other thing. That was just David Miscavige being a fucking, complete masochistic, just fucking psychopath. But you have to sign this waiver saying you're doing this program voluntarily and that you can voluntarily exit the program at any time. And then all the security guards, here's a fact that most people don't know, are also notaries. They don't bring in a notary. They have the fucking security guard, another guy named Alex Duvall, who I also knew, okay, get upstairs with your shit, shitheads. So Alex says to me, the other Alex Myers says to me, "Are you going to do the program or what?" And I said, because these two women had been two people who had been basically narcissistically abusing me for 3 months straight. I said, I don't want to talk in front of them. And they were like, how dare you? And Alex is like, get out. He tells them to get out. They were so mad. They fucking like slammed the door. And he's like, okay, so what's the real deal? And I said, here's the deal. I know that everybody's going to find out that, you know, like I fell in love with this person. I'm not a lesbian. I don't want to be known as the lesbian, you know, and if I commit myself and I do this program and I go through this whole thing, I don't want people to look at me like I'm just a dirty, disgusting lesbian. Like either I'm going to be able to graduate and people are going to look at me again like Nora, or I just, what's the fucking point? I don't want to do it. And he goes, listen, nobody knows why you're here. I know why you're here. Obviously, I'm the RPFIC, and the people in the ethics department, they know why you're here. Nobody else knows. No one's going to find out. Nobody thinks you're a lesbian. Okay, gaslight, 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 gaslight. So I say, okay, I do the program. The next day, I'm filling out paperwork and all this stuff, and I'm just like, I'm sitting in the hallway, and I'm just bawling, and there's all these people I don't know, and they're just like walking up and down the hallway like, like giving me dirty looks. And I'm like, okay, welcome to the RPF. Like, and these are RPFers. These are people who are in the program, right? And then all of a sudden, from behind, I don't know who's doing it, I'm getting this enormous hug. And then I hear this little teeny tiny Australian accent coming from my friend, Kylie Rose Pierce. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm like, oh, Kylie, thank God I know someone. Like we had trained together in Florida. And then I stand up and she gave me a really like a full like best friend hug, and I'm crying, and she's like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Like, I got you. We're going to get through this. That incident of a friend comforting me, showing me real love and affection ended up, I lost count, 50 reports of me 2D flowing this girl that I knew, who I had no sexual intention towards, but because we hugged, now I'm in the shit. I get immediately pulled back into Alex's office. What the fuck are you doing? I said, what are you talking about? And he throws the stack of reports down. And I'm like, what's the problem? I've known Kylie forever. She's my friend. I was crying. She's telling me you can't do that. You can't be hugging women. You can't be looking at women. I said, I thought nobody knew why I was here. And he's like, yeah, but that's obviously 2D flowing. I'm like, that's not 2D flowing. I wasn't trying to get in her pants. What the fuck are you talking about?
So if they didn't know, so what you're saying is if they didn't know what you were in for, they would have seen two girls, friends, just embracing each other like friends. But the fact that they obviously knew what you were in for, they created a different picture.
And then you get thrown into this environment where I lived in Celebrity Center, the rooms were crowded. You usually had like 8 people to a room. So it was like 4 different sets of bunk beds, right? But that was considered a low capacity room. So I was once in a room with 6 people, which was great. So then I go from that environment to triple bunks. You're having like 30 plus people in a room.
Full ass grown adults.
Full ass grown adults sleeping on like World War II bunk beds that are held together with wishes and dreams. You get a junior high size locker to put all of your possessions in, which are none. It's just your uniform, your deodorant. You know, you have to keep all of your hygiene stuff, you know, together because you're expected. Now again, at Celebrity Center, in these dorms that we had at the Wilcox, which is now a hotel, you had an ensuite bathroom, right? So if you got used to like somebody's taking a poop and you're showering and you were just like, I don't care. We got to, you know, everybody's got to do what they got to do. I'm showering, and you really had to shower quickly anyway. So it didn't matter. But we were never in a situation where everybody's walking around naked, right? So I go from that like ensuite, and sometimes you can be like, don't come in here. It's real bad. It's locked. I'm pooping. Please wait, you know, to the first night I have to go shower. I have to run up 7 flights of stairs because the shower rooms are on the 7th floor. There's a men's shower room and a women's shower room. And the shower rooms consist of some benches and 7 shower stalls. So I go into this room, okay? Again, total closeted lesbian. I'm there because I'm a lesbian. I'm trying really hard to not be a lesbian. I walk into this room filled with steam, like 50, 60 women naked or getting naked, no towel, coming in and out of these showers, just talking to each other like, oh my God, today was really rough. Did you guys get that thing done? But like, it's just normal. And I was like,
oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Basically. And so the next day I went downstairs to talk to Alex and I was like, sir, I think this is really hard for me to say, but I've never been in an environment like that. And it's really not helping me to think I'm not a lesbian when I'm surrounded by boobs. And it's, there's a lot of boobs. And he was like, get your shit together. You know, like, I'm trying to be like, this is not changing my mind. Like, I had to say that out loud. Like, is there a place I could shower maybe by myself? You know, where I don't
in the men's locker room.
All the boobs. It's a lot of boobs. So many boobs. And I basically got punished for that, right? And I got punished for every time I didn't look feminine. At one point I cut my hair short. Now you look like a dyke. They wanted me to wear makeup. Like, no matter what I did, it was another punishment. At first, the girl that I, was in love with, she wasn't there. 3 months later, she arrives. We are still under this separation order. So now I'm expected to, I had been promoted to the technical unit. I'm supervising the course room. I now have to supervise somebody that if I get within 1 foot of her while I'm trying to like, be like, okay, look, I'm like, that's the reference. Just everybody look.
You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Yeah. They have you in
no matter what
situation.
Yeah. No, the whole 3 years was basically again and again and again and again getting punished for things I hadn't done, for thoughts, for ideas, for making women laugh, for high-fiving a woman, for, and then one time I was like, okay, well, let's flip it around. Let's just flirt with a guy then. If I'm supposed to be straight, let's just turn on the flirty flirt, because I had a husband. I've had lots of boyfriends. So I did. And this guy went after we had like, it was very mild flirting. Okay. This wasn't even like, I'm trying to like get in his pants or anything. He got so turned on by, my boobs, right, that he went and masturbated. Now, masturbation, guys, masturbation is a crime in Scientology. It's a crime.
The Mormon Church. That's another.
And in the Mormon Church, it's a crime in Scientology. You are not allowed to do that. Like, let's put it this way: Danny Masterson was punished less for aggressively raping women and drugging them than people who masturbate. Okay, people who are pedos get punished less in the Church of Scientology than people who masturbate. Okay. The crimes are, if you have bad thoughts about L. Ron Hubbard and it shows up on an e-meter, that's like numero uno, or David Miscavige. Okay. Number 2. Okay. No, that's my computer gave me a word.
Okay. I was like, oh shoot.
No, you did fine. Number 2, okay, is masturbation. And then everything. Well, actually, I take that back. Number 2 is being gay. And then number 3 is masturbation. Right. So I was already like one of the darkest criminals, on earth. And people are only, guys, just as a note, people are only ever supposed to be put on this program, the Rehabilitation Project Force. It's a program, rehabilitate. They call it, one time Mike Rinder called it in an article, like a spa-like vacation for people to rejuvenate their purpose. Okay. Nothing could be further from the truth. But people are only supposed to be sent to this program specifically if they are what's called an L1 RSer, which means when the topic of Scientology, Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard, David Miscavige comes up and you're holding those cans, the e-meter does this dance like this and just looks crazy. That's called a rock slam. That means you have an evil intention. So if you have evil intention,
right? That makes sense.
Yeah. So if you have evil intentions against those guys, you go to the RPF. If you've committed financial crimes like stealing money from the org or things like that, you go to the RPF. Or if you are a stat crasher, which means when you come into an area, somebody gets you a job in this area, all of a sudden it just fucking tanks. Or you're a non-producer. You're just sitting around going like, hey, Sea Org's awesome. Love it. And you're just not doing anything. Those are the only people who are supposed to be signed to the RPF. When I was there, I would say at least 70% of the people who are currently doing the RPF were there for out 2D, for having done an affair. They had sex. Someone was there because they mocked up a relationship with someone else while they were married. Like, literally imagine, like, God, I wonder what it'd be like.
Fantasy.
Yeah. Okay. So for the punishment for violating the 2D rules, okay, is very clear. It's also one sentence. The punishment for out 2D is beaching, which means literally we fucking throw you off the boat onto an island. Good luck, Chuck. Fuck off. Yet they got sent to the RPF instead.
This is so much like Mormonism too, because I mean, I'm not like I'm in the middle of listening to Sherry Frankie's book about her mother, Hildebrand, and her mother Ruby, when she was a coach for this connections cult, she claimed a woman was having an affair because she thought that the man was good looking.
There you go.
If that means you've had an affair, then I've had multiple, because you can think someone's good looking but not be interested in like
Listen, I think Nicole Conan, who's a lesbian lumberjack, is hot AF. I'm not having no affair with her just because I like her watching she chops wood.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it's the humanity of it all. Like, I know, like, you know, when you're with a partner that you love, you're not going to compromise that, but you can be like, oh, a really attractive man, and then like, that's it. Leave it at that. I'm not going to go the extra mile. So this is thought control. This is like 1984. Or like this is crazy making.
Yeah, it's 24/7. I mean, you have 20-minute meal breaks. You have 15 minutes to run up that 7 flights of stairs and shower, and you had 3-minute showers, and then you had to come down and muster again. You're supposed to study 5 hours a day, so you make your progress through the program, and the rest of the day is hard labor. You are out there doing construction with no PPE, with minimal OSHA standards. You know, like for example, the blue on the building, okay, that everybody's like, that's a big blue building. We had to repaint that. We set up scaffolding and we're repainting that by hand up there with like no fucking harnesses, no nothing. I hung off the side of the building on one of those like, you know, window washer things. Now we did have a harness for that apparatus, but if you're on the scaffolding, you didn't have a harness. And we did, I like stuccoed the whole face that you see where the Scientology sign, I stuccoed all that.
I used to live in LA, so I'm Big Blue. Like I've been by it, and then I used to go to a bar around there. It was kind of like, I think Celebrity, there was a bar I used to go to. And that was in the 2000s. So, you know, there wasn't that much of it. It was just that weird. There wasn't really, as for us non-scientific,
because nobody, well, there's been people speaking out about Scientology since 1951. Let's put it that way. But I will give credit where credit is due. Lawrence Wright wrote an incredible book. It left out a lot of shit, but he wrote an incredible expose book called Going Clear, and The Prison of Belief, which then got made into a brilliant documentary by Alex Gibney. It was the tip. People would ask me about that all the time, and I'd say that's the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg in Scientology. Like that's how little that covered. And then you have Leah Remini, you know, Scientology in the Aftermath, which again covered a lot of stories. It gave a human face to the abuse, but still didn't cover everything. Still, but these two things in combination, because they came out like boom, boom, they put Scientology in the zeitgeist in a way that it never had been before. Because the Time Magazine article did kind of like, it was the first salvo, the Time Magazine article in 1988. But Scientology spent almost 20 years punching back at Time Magazine through lawsuits and against that reporter, trying to get them like just eliminated from journalism altogether. That article, if you've never read it, please go read it. It's the best article ever written about Scientology. Because, and I left something out. So before the book, before Lawrence Wright's book, you have somehow a mass exodus happens of these senior executives, and they go and get interviewed by the Tampa Bay Times. Tell their stories, right?
That was a big.
It was a huge blow to Scientology, because not only do you have like little peons like me, like I grew up in Scientology, is bad, blah 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 blah. You had people at the top who worked with David Miscavige, with L. Ron Hubbard, going like, bro, let me tell you what happened. And then Lawrence Wright book comes out, and then Leah's show, which opened the floodgates for people like me who grew up in it, were abused by it, who survived it, to be free to discuss it in a way and educate more deeply about Scientology, because it is, like Mormonism, so secretive.
Yes.
Like, you're not supposed to look at these scriptures unless you're, doing that specific, course or whatever. So it's, I'll give credit where credit's due. Absolutely. Without those guys coming in the forefront, because I had started speaking out before all that happened, and people were like, well, your story sounds really awful, but thank you for telling us. Thank you.
Sign what? Like, when I lived in LA, I remember the personality test would be out on the sidewalk.
Everywhere.
And I remember one time I was approached by people in weird uniforms that wanted to come take, but their eyes looked weird to me. I was like in my 20s. So I was like, I'm going to go with this cute boy to the bar. Like, I was not interested so much in self-development at that point. But again, I didn't grow up. I have no one in my family. I grew up Presbyterian with Petty Betties, Voodoo in the closet. Like, I grew up like getting, I mean, literally like everybody in my family has a bar in their house. So we love Jesus, but we also,
pour one out for JC, baby.
Yeah, but we'll also drink. I mean, my parents still out drink me, so I was not in that mindset of like, so I didn't really know anything about it. It was kind of weird. They had these weird uniforms on, and I was really
that was when they got the valet kind of uniforms happening, where they looked like they were in a vampire costume with the shiny vests.
It was weird, and their eyes freaked me out. Now that I recognize that is a cult look, that is, bless their hearts. I'm not saying that in a Southern way. Like, I mean that. Like, I'm not saying that in like the mean. I'm like, I have empathy for them now, but I remember being kind of put off by it and being like, no, I'm just gonna go over here. Like, I'm 23. Like, I'm not gonna, that martini's looking really good. But I think too, with all, I mean, it's amazing. I asked a long time ago, asked Claire Headley that, did you ever think there would be a day where Scientology would become such a cultural phenomenon? Like, it's why everybody's talking about it.
The goal of Scientology and the goal of L. Ron Hubbard was for a clear planet, meaning that Scientology is the religion of planet Earth, right? But nobody ever thought that our dirty laundry, our secrets, because anything that's ever, what you're told in Scientology is that any negativity about Scientology are SPs. Anybody who says Scientology is a cult, SP. Anybody who questions anything, anything who questions anything about Scientology, suppress a person. Suppress a person. This is bad. These people are bad. The psychiatrist is bad. Medical field's bad. That person's bad. These people left. Anybody who leaves, bad. Anybody who speaks out, bad. Anybody who has a bad experience, bad. Right? So you are so isolated. Your world is this big. Yet Scientologists believe with all their heart that everything they do affects the whole world. Case in point, the Berlin Wall. Scientologists will, to your face, tell you that the Berlin Wall came down because OT8 was released. So much data was released into the universe that it caused Gorbachev to say, I'm going to bring down the wall. Not the decades of negotiations that started with Carter, okay, and then went into Reagan. Not at all. Not diplomacy. Not a fucking negotiations. Scientology did that. They claimed at one time that they had brought peace to the Middle East with the way to happiness. How's that going?
Do we still have
how's that going?
Is peace in the Middle East a thing? Because I don't think it's a thing yet. So that was
their claim. Scientologists believe that. Scientologists believe whatever they tell them. They have a magazine called Advance Magazine, which is the magazine of the Advance Organization Los Angeles, right? Where you do the OT stuff, where you learn about Xenu and the body thetans and all these things. Okay. So in these, you would get the OT phenomenon stories, right? And so these are real life Scientologists who have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to find out about Xenu, the intergalactic overlord. If you've never seen this, the South Park episode, just go watch that. It's perfection.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Okay? Yeah, it tells you everything you need to know about Xenu. And they will tell stories like this, like, guys, I was on a plane and we started experiencing a lot of turbulence. I mean, the captain came on, told us to put on our seatbelts. It was really scary. The plane was starting to drop. It was awful. So I closed my eyes and I set my anchor points around the plane. I just put all of my attention on the plane and my anchor points. and I stabilized the plane. I got us through that. I saved a plane load of people. And they are like, no, honey, it's a fucking air pocket. Like, what the fuck?
The pilot, I don't know.
Not the pilot piloting you through rough weather. No, you just imagining. And what they're imagining, like an anchor point, right? If you were to close your eyes, okay, and you just put little points, boop, around your space, right? Your little space bubble. Those are your anchor points, right? And when you're OT, you're supposed to be able to push those anchor points out so that you, as a being,
you're the savior.
You're in charge of all this space now. Okay. People will say things like, on 9/11, I just put my anchor points around that, that firefighter that ran out right before it collapsed. I had all my attention on him. I was focused. I was watching the TV and I saved him. Like, I mean, just fucking bull. Why didn't you move the plane, bitch? Why didn't you?
I know, what about it? I was about to say they're literally saying like Marie Laveau hold my beer. They're gonna try to out magic. I mean,
100.
But I don't, I understand like I've we've all been in, I've been in a narcissistic relationship, which is a cult of one. Like I get that,
yeah.
but that beaten down, but that is just, and there is that concept of traumatic narcissism where you become like the narcissist in order to survive with the narcissist. So I can understand like from an analytical perspective, but it is, that's, I was about to say, if we do have any Scientologists who are questioning that happen to be watching this channel right now, well, congratulations for sitting through this, because that shows that you're actually trying to critically think. But I was going to say, can we just say, Nora, it would save them a lot of money if they just watch the South Park episode?
Watch the South Park episode. I mean, but here's the thing, though. Here's what will happen with that, okay? Scientologists, again, you're commanded not to watch anything that's negative on television. At one point during the late 90s, when the internet was in its infancy, guys, okay? For those of you who are very young and you are part of the iPad, iPhone generation, I salute you. But back in the day, guys, when we wanted to get on the internet, we had to plug our computer into the phone hole in the house. Okay. And if you wanted to do certain things, you had to have what's called this little shiny disc. It's come back now. There's CDs, but you put the CD into your computer and then it would tell your computer to do stuff. It was a little program. It's like downloading software from the App Store now, but it was in physical form and you had to put it in there, and it took about an hour for it to read this thing and then absorb the information and then be able to do the thing. So when the internet was in its baby stage, Scientology decided they were going to be on the jump. They had computers set up in public areas, and they wanted every single Scientologist to make their very own I am a Scientologist website with their name and then like some blurb about what they love about Scientology. And then they were told, this is the diabolical part, guys, because people didn't understand technology. Bring home this disc and this is your website, and you put it on your computer, because people didn't understand that. Like my stepdad, who bless him, he was, from 1925. He asked me, when you go on your vacation, who's going to pick up your email for you? And I was like, oh, I love you so much. It's with me everywhere. But it's okay. I have someone, they're doing it. Thank you. You don't have to worry about that. But this is like the concept that Scientologists had of the internet. So they went home and they brought this disc home with them. They did not know that disc contained malware that was then nanny software on their computer that was tracking everything that Scientologists were doing on their home computers. So they would see if they were going to naughty sites like Operation Clambake or Xenu.net, or Googling Scientology when that was the thing, or talking to bad people on Scientology, right? So then eventually, obviously, people got rid of those computers. Technology moved. They couldn't just keep giving out discs. So then, of course, they formed the Facebook police to peruse people's friend lists, to be like, so-and-so's declared suppressive. You better delete that person.
That is like batshit crazy.
Yeah. But they did that. They did the I am a Scientologist thing to try and get a jump. And then, now they have their own TV station on DirecTV, because they bought up, the old KR, whatever, that went out of business. So they bought those airwaves and they just broadcast propaganda 24/7 with their claims of bullshit. But there's nothing, I mean, like literally, if you ask me about any topic, I will have a Scientology story for it that will blow your mind, because there is nothing that Scientology hasn't tried to usurp, that they haven't tried to, ruin, ever. That's all they do. And to swing it back to the narcissist thing, because Scientology is a religious Darvo, the product of you being in Scientology longer and longer and longer is that you become a narcissist. You become a perfect narcissist. People who have been longtime Scientologists, who have not sought any type of therapies, right, to help themselves out, they are narcissists. 100%. They are, and then because of that, because of their upbringing, because of their own trauma, because of their indoctrination, they can then become abusers. And, they become prolific abusers, especially in our community. And by that, I mean, people have left Scientology, right? We have a lot of people floating around in that community who are pretending help under the guise of like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this group and it's helpful and blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, in their private life, like they like to say, they're abusing people. And, I get a lot of flack because I don't really, in my personal opinion is this: if you spent any amount of time in Scientology in a position of power in Scientology, where your edicts, your directives, your actions negatively affected hundreds and thousands of people, covered up crimes against people, kidnap people, all that stuff. If that was your life in Scientology, doing actual crimes and Scientological crimes in the name of L. Ron Hubbard, David Miscavige, whomever, and then you leave Scientology and you decide, well, I'm going to say truth about some Scientology stuff, but I'm going to keep some of this stuff over here. I'm not giving you a cape. I'm not giving you a fucking crown. Okay. Because real crimes happen to real people. There's still a lot of mysteries out there that people don't have the answers to. And
it's a crime organization to me.
It is a crime organization that's filled with secrets, and people are still keeping those secrets for reasons I do not abide by or understand. Like, why keep the secrets? Why?
Right. You're already out.
Let it out.
I have way more respect for people like cult survivors who come out and like apologize and fess up to everything they've done. I have way more respect for that. And actually, I know we're a little bit over 2 hours now, Nora, and I don't want to keep you too long because I'm having so much. I could literally talk. I know you did like an 8-hour live the other day. I like watched it and I was like, girl, that's like a full-time job. I mean, it was brilliant.
That was a lot. Yeah.
I want it. Will you come back so we can talk more about narcissism? I can get questions from our audience, but I have one last question I wanted to end on with you. Do you watch The Real Housewives of New York City?
I need to. I know that what's her face?
Rebecca Minkoff.
Thank you, Minkoff. Oh. See, I wanted to because her dad has, killed a couple people. And it's never been held accountable for that. Yeah, her dad is Dr. David Minkoff, and he is responsible for 2 deaths so far that we know of in Scientology. One of them, of course, famously, Lisa McPherson.
Okay, I didn't know she was connected to Lisa McPherson.
Oh yeah, and also Stacy, the woman that just died recently.
Yes, yep.
And this is what Scientology does, though. This is a smokescreen. Let's get her on one of the most popular shows on planet Earth, and then she can be like, "Oh, I'm Jewish and a Scientologist. I'm just a snowflake. I don't know what anybody's talking about. I got bat mitzvah. Everything's great." Bop, 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 bop. Yeah, she's a fraud too. She's a fucking fraud.
I watched these shows and I was like, it was hysterical. I'd love for you to go and watch this season because they ask in the confessionals, they ask a lot of the women, like, what are your thoughts on Scientology? And a lot of them, you can see they're like walking on eggshells and they're like, no comment. Well, one girl's like, it's fucking weird as shit. Like, Jesus,
I love it.
Well, she says like self-improvement philosophy. Yo, that's yoga. Like, I mean, listen, okay, yeah, there are yoga cults out there. We can get to that to the next episode, what to look out for. I lost my cover, but I'll say something about secrets. Secrets are no fun. Secrets are for everyone. In the Yoga Sutras, there are 4 different padas or chapters, and they always say you spend the first 10 years studying the first 2 padas, and then after that you can read the 3rd and 4th one. But you guys, when you buy a copy of the Yoga Sutras, guess what?
You read the whole thing.
With it. So they're not hiding it from you. You can read it. A teacher will just be like, oh, later we'll talk about it. And honestly, I will say the 3rd and 4th, it talks a lot about consciousness and like all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit like, you need to be a little bit more like practiced in the theory of the mind before you can actually even really understand what they're saying. But there's no secret. Like there's no like, you know, so I will say like it's in the fact that she talked about how she's Jewish and she's also, I'm like, I have seen, okay, come on, girl, get off of it. Like, we've seen too many people like you out there that are like, that's bullshit. You can't be one religion and be a Scientologist. Well,
I will say this. Judaism is the only exception to that.
Really?
Yes. No. Like Johnny Lewis. I was at his bar mitzvah. Like you are allowed to get bar mitzvahed. You're allowed to go to Jewish. And it's really like, it's because a lot of the Jewish people have a lot of money. It's about money.
I was supposed to say, are they Scientology afraid of the Mossad? Like, are they afraid of
then they teamed up with Nation of Islam. Then they teamed up with Nation of Islam also for money, even though Hubbard's a total racist, which didn't make no sense.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of, it's usually white.
No, there's not a lot of people of color in Scientology. It is white.
Very professionally white, isn't it? Like,
yes.
I mean, as me as an almost 42-year-old professional white woman, I've been my whole life a white woman, so I think it's pretty much, you see,
it's white.
It's white. Well, before next time, I go see if you sit down and listen to her. She's funny. Okay. She had some funny stuff she says, but it's just bullshit. Like I think and I just love the one person who was like, this is fucking like it's weird. Like what the like? And there's one girl that's like prying her about it, and I'm like, you're a brave girl, because a lot of the other girls are like, you know, I don't want Osa on me. I'm just gonna be like, oh, no comment. Rebecca Meancoff, and I think there was something else I was going to say. It'll come to me, but yeah, I really want to bring you back. I am having so much fun, Nora. I thank you for this. I want to get into your escape. I want to get more into I also want to talk to you about what's going on in the ex-Scientology world. Okay. It's important as well, and of course, everyone has to make their own opinions. Of course, we're not trying to control anybody. But I like how you bring up like supporting narcissistic abuse, and I want to talk more about that because it's not tolerable. This is not just someone being mean or someone who's having a bad day. This is a systematic behavior, and we can talk more about that because I think a lot of people like myself who are never Scientologists, we want to do the best we can to help. And we want to help you guys, but if you're giving to the wrong person, and so I kind of want to go there and like talk about it and really and I applaud you guys. Please go and check out Nora's channel. Watch all of her lives. Her lives are great, you guys. Even the 8-hour one, I was like, yes, girl, you were just going. You were going. And I commend you for supporting the women who have come forward. Obviously, Jenna Miscavige, you know, but then the other woman, Lindsay, like the fact that you gave equal support to her and what she went through. And as someone who has survived a narcissistic, narcopath, a psychopath myself, I know what that feels like. And it does give you a brain injury. And I hope that those women are taking care of themselves. And so we can get into that next time because I think that's super important. A lot of my viewers are survivors of narcissists themselves. And we want to support where we can support. And, you know, if we got to be a getaway driver for someone leaving Scientology or a narcissistic relationship, we will.
Same. And I feel just as passionate about it. I mean, I was really not educated on it until recently. And I think it's one of those like Pandora's boxes that once you open it and you start understanding the mechanics of narcissistic abuse and Darvo and triangulation and all of this stuff, you're like, oh, like your whole everything. You see it. You can't unsee it. It's like the guy, what's that? The Dead or whatever, where he puts
the glasses. Yeah.
It's like that.
Well, and I asked you before we started filming a question that I was going to ask, but I think we're going to bring it up next, and I'll just ask it again in next episode because I want you to think on this because I've been thinking about this a lot. Do we have a bigger narcissist problem now, or are we just more aware of it now? You know, or, you know, with I mean, I think about when we were kids, we would play outside all the time and be on our bikes everywhere. Our parents never knew where we were. But now kids don't go out that much, and I think it's because parents know now, they're more aware of predators, whereas when we were kids, they weren't really aware of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I
mean,
don't know.
my answer to that question, I was thinking about that, is both. I think that we have far more narcissism now than we had 40 years ago when you and I were growing up because of media, because of the way media shifted, because of social media, the birth of social media. There was never a point in our adolescence or any adolescence prior to that where we were so obsessed with ourselves. Right. And I think it started in our generation with like the disposable cameras at parties. And we would be like, take a little picture, and then they would all come out blurry and it'd be a fucking waste of money and we'd throw them away and whatever. But that was like, we started documenting our lives during the late 80s and 90s with the birth of the VHS camcorder and these disposable cameras. Prior to that, listen, guys, back in the 1800s, if you wanted a documentation of your family, y'all had to sit for fucking 3 days to get a painting done. Okay. 3 days of your life. Okay. Just sit still. Some fucking poor person trying to paint you. Okay. And then the camera changed that. Right. And people could see themselves, and it was a whole thing. And as that has evolved to caricatures of things and in movies and in television, we have slowly, for the last, almost 200 years now, since the advent of the camera, become more and more narcissists because we are so focused on our image and what that projects to society. And thankfully, now we're becoming aware of the damage that does and what the exact mechanics of it are. But it's kind of like we're in a runaway train at this point. You know what I mean? In my opinion. And we're like, I don't know what do we do? Unplug the internet? We do, like, I don't fucking know.
Well, that's something we can talk about next week as well. My big thought process is, are narcissists made or are they born? And I think both are true. But it's back in my boyfriend also, again, guys, he's 11 years older than me. I'm just going to say that again. He was married to a narcissist before he met me. He had already gone through his therapy after he met me. So I got the healed version.
There you go.
He knows a lot about, he researched, because he's, between you and me, I think I say this in a wonderful way. Like, I think he's actually slightly autistic. Like, you wouldn't tell that about him. But I think because he gets very deep into research sometimes, and he research like the strangest shit that you're like, where did you even find this? Like, right now he's really into like Japanese mask. I'm like, okay, you're a white dude from Florida. Like, how did this? Like, it's so. But he researches, and I find that to be very unique about him. And he researched all these ancient cultures and historically how they would deal with like narcissists. Tribes would recognize the person as being the narcissist, and they probably didn't call them that. They would remove them from the tribe. Yeah. They would send them out. Yeah. You're disrupting the harmony of our community, and so we now don't.
Well, even look at the Wild West. They did the same shit. Like, if you just fucking cause too much shit in a town, they're like, you're barred from this town. You go find us. Fuck. Yeah. And people couldn't send messages like, watch out for Bart. That guy's a shithead. It would take a long time. So he might get some roots, and then finally the wanted poster would get there and be like, oh, fuck, now I gotta fucking go from this way.
Yeah. Well, and now we get this we're in this weird, and I've seen that, like, we have all these like leaders who are narcissistic. We have this thing where the victim, like, you've been a victim, gets completely smeared and their lives destroyed by the rage of a narcissist. And I want to kind of, because I think it's really healing too, when other people hear that other people, they're not alone. And I know that sounds bad, like misery loves company, whatever. But I think when you know that you're not, what you're going through in this abuse is textbook. Yeah. You're not alone. A lot of us have been through it. And so I do want to really go into that too with you and just go there. And I think it just pisses me off so much that there's so many people willing to protect the narcissist. That is weird. Like, and obviously in the past they didn't do that, but now it's this like weird protection of the narcissist, even though they've been lying countless times. I mean, I'll just go ahead and say the person that you're referring to, I was telling you off camera before we saw your video, for a while, my boyfriend's like, dude, this guy's just like, oh fuck, he's crying again. Like my boyfriend picked up this pretense, this fake, like, anyway, but we'll get into that next week, guys. And I definitely want to hear about your escape story, because I think it's so important. And even though, and I think that's the one thing about like Scientology or Mormonism or whatever it is you're leaving, NXIVM, even though the stories are different, that human experience connects with people. And I think what's amazing with Scientology is it speaks of human resilience, of what you guys go through and how you bounce back. What should have destroyed you didn't. And I think that's a very incredible story for people, just people like me who have never been in a cult, to be like, wow, if a human being, this is a beautiful example of resilience. And that's the one beautiful thing about humans, is we're either we're really stupid or we're just resilient. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we are really the reality show for the aliens. Like, they're like, next time. I mean,
I love it.
I'm like, what? Because I want to get into like the whole reincarnation thing too with Scientology, because that's interesting to me too. And I do believe in reincarnation, but I always tell people, like my students, when they get obsessed with it, I'm like, stop it. Be here now. Like, stop trying to distract yourself. This is, whether it was real or not, it's not now. You're now, you're here. This is it, So I want to talk about that as well. And part of me is like, why the fuck I must have been real bored to come back to this planet. Like, because this shit crazy. Like, surely on other planets is not this crazy. So anyway, you guys, but I thank you so much, Nora, for being here today and for coming back. And I want my audience, please ask any questions you want in the comment section below. That's why I opened my channel, is so that we could have communities of conversations around really important issues and really weird issues and all. I think Scientology kind of encompasses both. So,
yeah, in a super weird way. Yeah.
Two things can be true, right? So anyway, you guys, well, thank you so much, Nora, and everybody, make sure you subscribe. Please go subscribe to Nora.
Yes, please.
We'll talk about it next episode, but she got hit by a narcissist like I did, and so we want to throw that support to her. So please go subscribe to her channel. Let's get her numbers even bigger than they were before, you guys. So,
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, bye everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Let me show you the sky below.